Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. It's the Blowfish here, the world's only heavy metal marine biologist. Hopefully, I'm stalling slightly for time here to allow people to log in, get logged on, because I can't see anything as far as I'm concerned. We are beholden to the demon that is technology. I could be talking to just nobody at all at this point in time. So get involved, bit more time. Hopefully you're there. This is fantastic. It is just me. Here is the office of the Blowfish. It's great. It's strange. It's very strange, but let's give it a go nonetheless. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our night of Ocean Optimism. Everything's online. This is new for us. All that kind of jazz. So, fingers crossed technology will work. It's been a bit of a strange year, and so an online AGM is probably the best way to cap that off. So thank you, everyone, for coming and logging in. And if you're still logging in, thank you as well for joining us. It's our online AGM. We've got a fabulous evening ahead. So much cool stuff going on. And if you want to chat about it in the old socials, we do like a bit of socials, please use the hashtag Ocean Optimism. Okay, so hashtag Ocean Optimism, because we are buzzing, riddled with optimism, or certainly riddled with something, but the tests haven't come back yet. So as I was saying, our theme is of course Ocean Optimism, and we are thrilled to welcome back as our sponsor Rakuten. They're our main event sponsor. Very grateful for them sponsoring the conference this evening. I've also got a really big shout out here to the Scottish Youth Parliament, who have played a crucial part in bringing this whole night of Ocean Optimism and all you guys together. Okay, and getting it out to you. They've been great facilitators. They are like Royal Mail, but efficient and fishy related. It's good stuff. So you'll be hearing from them later in the program, and that's going to be magic. Now, throughout the evening, all of our live sessions are going to be moderated by a member of the team. So, do use your chat box. We again, because it's technical and it's online, it will go a little bit, it can go a bit pear-shaped at any particular time. Feel free to communicate with us with the chat boxes. If you get completely done over, you can contact the guys running it. I'll probably get a message come through in a second telling me who to contact if it all goes horribly wrong, but do. And yes, so you will also see, if it can keep up, which I doubt it can, you also see that we've added captions. Okay, people have requested captions, more than happy to deliver on them. So these are included for the live sessions. They are added after a 5-second delay. So, and they might not be perfect, so just let that catch up. But you'll see that it could be quite funny. We could get some quite hilarious captions in there. So that's all good. Right. Okay. I think I've successfully got this ball rolling, but who knows? It could all be downhill from here. But we're going to smash straight in and open the event with a very short little video, followed by our chair of the board, Amanda Nobbs, and chief executive, Sandy Luck, in discussion, looking back over the past year and looking forward to 2021 and beyond. Okay, so I will hand it straight over to them.
For a ban on forever chemicals used in bathroom and cosmetic products, asking retailers to stop using PFAS in their products to protect the public's health and the health of the ocean.
So we've made some good progress this year with marine protected areas, particularly with the designation of the 41 marine conservation zones in English seas, and we had fantastic public support for our response to the consultation on highly protected marine areas. But there's still so much more we've got to do to ensure that our bit of the ocean recovers.
So this has been a roller coaster of a financial year, with Brexit formally happening, the 2019 elections, and a new version of the UK Fisheries Bill hitting Parliament. We played a leading role in influencing the last version of the bill and have already had a big impact on this new version, so fingers crossed for the year ahead.
How many of us have craved the sea during lockdown? The importance of our ocean for well-being has never been clearer. It makes us happy. We rely on healthy seas for food, the air we breathe, the stability of our climate. As incoming chair, I've been so impressed by the way MCS makes change to improve the health of our seas possible. It's motivating to know that by acting together as the Marine Conservation Society, with all its activities, networks and partnerships, we can make a difference. It's a privilege to join the incredible team of trustees, staff, volunteers and supporters. This evening, Sandy and I'd like to give you a flavour of campaigning as the voice of our ocean during the pandemic and to share some of our future ambitions. For me, nothing highlights that can-do approach of MCS better than the response to COVID. Sandy, we've often talked about the pandemic as a catalyst for change. What's it been like?
Of course, COVID has had an impact, but it's also created so much space to be more creative and more innovative. We became a digital organisation almost overnight. Our education team became instant experts on online teaching, and they've also been producing the most brilliant webinars, helping those homeschooling parents to inspire children with fun ocean learning. And our ocean indoors content on social media brought the sea into our homes during lockdown, and lots of our supporters told us that they really appreciated that, including many of our company supporters. Incredibly, we also moved our parliamentary advocacy online, and we actually found that some of the parliamentarians and even ministers were actually more accessible and more available. And we managed to influence post-Brexit fisheries legislation, although disappointingly, key amendments in the fisheries bill did fall in the final sitting in Parliament. But we secured strong commitments from UK governments on environmental sustainability, on cameras on boats, and on fishing in marine protected areas. We will hold our governments to account on those promises.
Now, of course, doing citizen science virtually is a little bit more challenging.
That is definitely true. And for example, sadly, we had to pause our Seasearch volunteer dives, and we suspended all our volunteer activities for 3 months. But that didn't mean that our citizen science program was on hold. Quite the opposite. We managed to rethink our beach cleans and our litter surveys, and we actually recruited nearly 500 new beach clean organisers for our Great British Beach Clean this year. That's 50% more than last year. And we managed to pull off a really successful Great British Beach Clean. Even the Royals and Tim Peake got involved. That was a truly amazing feat, and I'd really, really like to say a massive thank you to all our beach clean organisers and volunteers, because it's your efforts that really made a difference to our data collection this year. And speaking of data, one of the things was that the slowdown in some of our usual activities meant that we had loads more time to really think about the decades worth of beach clean data we have. And it gave us a chance to work with really exciting partners like IBM, the Office for National Statistics, and lots of universities who've helped us organise our data differently and we can use it in new and exciting ways so we can have maximum impact on policy and also on behaviour change. And of course, in the midst of all of that, we also did a strategy review.
Absolutely. Our goal is a well-managed ocean that's able to recover, and we wanted to check that we were on track in order to help achieve that. There are some strong continuing themes. We want to ensure that marine protected areas are supported by action to protect them. We want sustainable fisheries and to have clean seas, and in particular we're focusing on the deposit return scheme and on microfiber pollution. And we're also looking to expand some new areas, climate change and the importance of blue carbon. We want to fully understand the link between climate and healthy seas so that we can have the maximum impact in the fight on climate change. Our ocean plays a key role in preventing climate change, but only if it's healthy and well protected. We want to be able to influence the global climate talks in Scotland next year. Health and well-being. Our ocean is our blue heart. It's the one that we're all passionate about protecting, not just for the incredible species that live there, but also for our own health and well-being. That's a strand of our work that's really come to the fore, and it sits well alongside our commitment to a more inclusive approach.
And as well as working more directly with people, we also want to do the same with companies.
That's right. If we can influence the way companies with a big impact work, we can make a big difference to the health of our ocean. We're keen to push this. We're looking for authentic and meaningful relationships with companies that want to change their impact on our ocean. And we're interested in new ways of funding environmental protection. Our aim has to be to achieve a step change in ocean recovery. Now, last but not least, I'd like to say a massive thank you for all your support, whether you give us funds, expertise, or your time and energy. All of you help us to make a huge difference. And without you, none of this would be possible. I'd now like to hand on to Mark Haviland, who's our Vice Chair, who's going to guide us through a short, punchy AGM. And we're also joined by Susan Ronaldson, who's our Treasurer, and Nicola Spencer, who's our Director of Finance and Resources.
Good evening. Thank you, Amanda and Sandy. Great words from you both. Thank you, and good evening and welcome to everybody to the 29th Annual General Meeting of the Marine Conservation Society. As you know, current government COVID guidelines prohibit large gatherings of people, and to minimize risk of infection, we are all encouraged to avoid situations where social distancing would be difficult. We still, however, wish to conduct the business of the AGM and to engage with our supporters. So the Board of Trustees have therefore carefully considered advice provided through company and charity law and approved holding the 2020 MCS AGM virtually. So we really appreciate so many of you members joining us here this evening. The AGM is the only legal part of the proceedings today, and I would remind you that only MCS members will be able to participate during the vote, and we do ask you please to participate. Information on the items being proposed tonight have been previously circulated to our members and are also available on our website. I will now announce the 4 proposals one by one. A proposer and seconder have been confirmed in advance and will be noted in the formal AGM minutes to be available on our website in due course. We ask members to use the area below the screen to submit your vote, and I'll tell you how to do that now. To submit your approval, please select the thumbs up button under each proposal that I'll read out in a second, which will turn yellow. Once you've clicked it and it's turned yellow, then click vote. You'll then be prompted to enter your name and postcode. Critical. Then you click send. Very easy, I hope. Please do this for each of the 4 proposals. But before we begin, I can confirm that 10 proxy votes have been received from members unable to attend this evening. And on behalf of the chair, as vice chair, I will carry these votes. So to the first item, approval of the minutes of the 28th annual general meeting that took place on the 4th of December 2019. Please cast your vote now if you have not done so already. To our next item, the approval of the financial statements for the year ended 31st of March 2020 and the reports of the trustees and auditors. Please cast your vote now if you have not done so already. To our third item, to appoint Richards Sandy Partnership Limited as the auditors of the company until the next AGM at a fee to be agreed with the Board of Trustees. If you have not voted already, please do so now. And lastly, our fourth item, which refers to changes on the board. To elect as chair of the Board of Trustees, Amanda Nobbs. Please now cast your vote. Thank you very much indeed, all of you. Keep voting, keep those votes coming in. We will announce the results after the Q&A that we will now hold. And as we change over, I would like to take this opportunity to thank a number of trustees who are retiring from the board tonight after many years of service. Steve Gray, Lee Morris, James Marsden, David Kipling, and Alex Wilson. All have given enormous amounts of time, dedication, and commitment in support of the MCS over the years. And Amanda will say a little bit more in a minute. But for those of you are leaving, do look out for something special in the post, courtesy of our friends at Glenmorangie. I would now like to welcome to the discussion the remaining members of the senior management team. Tasmin Betty, our Director of Engagement and on Communications. We have Kat Stevenson, Director of Fundraising, and Chris Tuckett, Director of Programs. I have a fantastic senior management team here to answer all your questions. So I think now we're all on board for the Q&A. We are going to open the floor to questions to members and non-members. But we will begin with a few that I've received earlier, just in case, just to give you all time to find that chat and to send them in. I'm just reading to see if we've got questions coming in now. Great. Okay. So listen, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read out a question first that we've had in. This one, I think, is for Amanda. Amanda, there's been a lot of focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion in the sector this year. Where does the MCS stand on this issue?
We're very clear that we couldn't achieve our objectives of healthy seas for enjoyment of all if we don't have a very inclusive approach. And in the past year and more, we've been working on projects to engage with lots of different groups and communities. We've also been very keen to learn about more about those communities that we're not serving and what the barriers are that are preventing this. And we've also tried to make sure that our own processes for recruitment and human resources are much more inclusive. We've got a long way to go. We have no pretense on this, but we are really, truly committed to making sure that we can be true to the ambition, that we have one ambition for everyone. And we will be very soon be publishing our policy on equity, diversity and inclusion. And we see this very much as a core part of our work rather than an add-on, and look to members to support us in this journey.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And what I'll do is, as I come to these other questions, if any of the panel want to grab a question you feel passionately about being at least one of the answers, do just throw your hand up and I'll throw to you. But I do have one here, which I'm going to direct to Susan, if I may, which is how are we doing financially and what is the forecast looking long term given the COVID situation?
Yes, well, we started the year with really healthy reserves. The charity is really well managed financially. We've obviously had a strategy for growth, and we had a really good performance last year in the accounts that we've just signed off. We had record income of 5.2 million. So we were planning to use that money for our fantastic programs. With COVID, we kind of reassessed our position, and we estimated that would impact our financial income by around a third to 30 to 45% down. So obviously a kind of a significant amount. And what that's meant has been a reprioritizing exercise, focusing on our core programs and really concentrating on consolidating rather than continuing to expand. We're obviously still in a very uncertain time, so it's very difficult to see with much certainty what's going to happen on the longer term, but we are regularly kind of reviewing our position. And I think it's really important that we strike that balance between being sensible, but make sure we're carrying out our important work. So Nicola, I don't know if you want to say a little bit more about where our financial position is at the moment.
Thanks, Susan. Yes, at the moment it's looking fairly good. We will not be getting income as high as last year. We know that, but it's looking better than we had anticipated when we first went into this pandemic. We have been really lucky to receive emergency funding from a number of our funders. Obviously, the government furlough scheme supported us particularly in the first few months. And we're so grateful for the continued support of all our members. We know that many are struggling financially, and we're very grateful that people are continuing to support us. We've also found different ways of doing things, as Sandy mentioned earlier. And although that the COVID pandemic has affected what we can achieve and how we do it, in some ways that's really positive. So we've been talking to people remotely, we've been engaging digitally and not herring around the country, running up our travel costs and so on. And so we've actually done quite a lot at reduced cost and also reduced our carbon footprint at the same time. So that's a really positive outcome from COVID. We are expecting to have a deficit at the end of this year, but it will be affordable within the reserves that luckily we brought forward from the good year last year. Looking longer term, we are concerned about next year. Many of the economic forecasts are suggesting it will be a tough year. People just disagree with how tough and how long it will go on for. So we are expecting our income to remain low or even be a little bit worse than this year because of the lack of some of the emergency funding. Furlough scheme will have stopped in March, we expect, for example. But the fundraising bunch are a very creative lot, and they're working really hard to get lots more income in from different places. And many of our supporters are really trying to help us through this difficult patch. So next year will be tough. But we're cautiously optimistic that beyond that we will start to grow again.
Great, reassuring. Yet we've got a note. There's some work to do, all of us. Thank you very much. And now I've got a great question here. Seeing all the rubbish, I think we've all experienced this, on our beaches after lockdown was lifted was heartbreaking. What can we do to educate people? And I'm going to go to Tamsin for that one.
Yeah, thank you. And hi, everyone. Yeah, absolutely heartbreaking walking along my local beach. Yeah, really upsetting to see all that. And it's felt like such a shame whenever the ocean and our blue spaces when we were in lockdown, and then to throw rubbish on it the minute we were allowed out seemed a very strange way to react. I think a few things. I think, we're working as hard as we can to sort of up our education, up our awareness, up our sort of amplify our media reach, all of those things. And to me, though, that's just part of the jigsaw. We all know we need to do things individually, but it goes way beyond that. It's about business change. It's about government change. We really need a systems change in society. How we're using it, how we get rid of it, and really focusing on that. So I think to me it goes a little bit beyond the education piece. That is really important, but those other elements are essential as well.
Excellent. Lots to do there. So another question. Keep them coming, folks. How about this one? So this is good. No, this is good. Technology. We really struggle. This is to you, Tamsin, I think. We really struggle to put our beach watch data in online, sending it in. They've done all the work. They need to send it in really easily. When will you get a new beach watch app or a beach watch app or a better website?
Yeah, good question. I'm glad I can answer it. Digital transformation project, and we are currently behind the scenes working away very, very hard to create a new website, which will be launched in April. And we're also just started the process of looking at that will be a bit behind that, but we very much hope to see it launched ahead of the busy summer season. So fingers crossed to all of you who so generously donate your time and collecting all this brilliant data for us, that actually will be making this an awful lot easier for you in the coming year. So first of all, thank you for all of you for taking your time and doing that. But yeah, hopefully next year that will become a little bit smoother.
Fabulous. Good news. Right, this one's over to Kat. Chris, forgive me, this is going to be for Chris. Will there be more capacity this year to increase the organisation's work in the UK overseas territories?
Yes. Sorry. Thank you, Mark, and thanks for the question. UK overseas territories work, as those of you out there probably know, we do quite a bit of work in the Caribbean. And a shout out here to Amdeep Man, who's in our team, absolute superstar on this work and is doing a brilliant job for us. So he works, say, Caribbean territories. There's 5 territories that we're working with. We started in Turks and Caicos, where we've had some history and worked there for quite a long time. But this year we've been really lucky. We've been successful in getting grants to do work in 2 more territories. And we want to do more of that. So yes, there are more resources on its way. We're bidding for further resource. It's not necessarily going to come to MCS, because that's not necessarily where it's going to make the difference. The important bit is to work with the communities in those territories. And that's what we're doing. They're collaborative projects, these, working with Anguilla, British Virgin Islands. And as I say, we want to work around all of the ones that we're in touch with. We're doing some great work out there. But it's got to be with those communities and in connection with them. So that means that Amdeep Man is doing calls like this at this time and later in the evening out to the Caribbean all the time. He's got an important role there, but also he's looking at what our government can put in to support the UCOTS as well, which is a really important element, and that's why he needs to be here to help channel that through.
Fantastic. Thank you very much indeed, Chris. So now I am going to go to Kat. Now, here, this is all about income. The charity's income has been growing significantly. Is this continuing, and will it continue? It's partly discussed before, but I think there's some specific insights in there you can give.
Yeah, absolutely. So the money that we deliver for the charity is there for a reason. It's to deliver on our strategy and the change that we want to give to our ocean. So yes, we want that to increase, but COVID has definitely changed the pace at which we're going to deliver that. So whilst the income last year, and it's a really good moment to reflect on what a great year we had last year, some amazing firsts for the team, the first single £1 million donation that came in to support our Good Fish Guide, and other work as well, the digital transformation project that Tamsin mentioned as well. So we had such a great year last year. And through this year of strange contraction and expansion of time, as we've all been in lockdown, it's really good to remember that. But this year has been tough. I've been so proud of the way that the whole team, not just the fundraising team, but across the whole MCS team, the way that we've pulled together and out to our supporters as well. It's been an unusual year, but it's really allowed a different sort of time with our supporters as well, and probably helped develop and strengthen relationships too. So we are kind of halfway through the year at the moment, so we're having an assessment of where we're at. But our original kind of line by line review of income right at the start of the year. If you remember, it was kind of 23rd of March, so we had just over a week to reassess that before we were in this financial year. So that busy week back then is proving to be reasonably accurate. So we're cautiously optimistic. Those are my 2 words for you, Mark: cautiously optimistic. And it'll just be that the pace will be steadier.
Excellent, thank you very much. Really comprehensive view there. Now, I think we've got time for maybe 2 more questions, and I'm going to go back to, I think Tamsin or Chris, you can fight over this question if you like, and then I'll do one more after that. So this one is, how much more pollution has the use of face masks and PPE equipment caused?
So I can do this. Yeah, I mean, we've literally just launched our Great British Beach Clean results here, and I think many of you will have seen those and actually found PPE on nearly 30% of beaches. Possibly than that, there was on our inland source to sea litter quest, we found even more. So I think that was nearly sort of 70%. So given and the fact that we're seeing in such high volumes inland, we worry how far, you know, where are all these travelling to, ways will they go down to the beaches? So we think it will be a growing problem. So really try and encourage everyone to, and if they do have to use disposable items, to throw them away sensibly. But yeah, we are concerned about it, and it's something to monitor in our surveys.
Great, thank you very much indeed. Well, listen, we are out of time because I've just got to give you the AGM results before we hand over to our, before I hand back over to Blowfish. So listen, I can announce the results because they are in. And so I'm just going to read through them all here. So the first item that you voted on, approval of the minutes of the 28th Annual General Meeting. We have counted the votes. Thank you, the minutes have been approved. To the second item, to approve the financial statements of the year ended 31st of March 2020 and the reports to trustees and auditors. We have counted the votes and they are approved. Thank you very much. Item 3, to appoint Richards Sandy Partnership Limited to the auditors of the company until the next AGM. We have counted the votes and they are also approved. Thank you very much. And lastly, to elect Amanda Nobbs as chair to the Board of Trustees. We have counted the votes and they too are approved. That now concludes our AGM, and I'm pleased to hand you back into the safe hands of Blowfish. Thank you very much indeed.
Mark, you absolute star. These hands are not safe, though. They're actually licensed as dangerous weapons. That is a complete lie. You can't do that. I've tried. You need to collect a certain number of bottle caps, and then you've got to cut the bit out of the back of the cereal box. It's a big thing. It's not worth it. Right. Well, there was a lot of stuff there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. Well, you've not gone anywhere, but goodness me, I'm spent already. Yet there is more to come. More excellentness, which is a real word, to come. So I'm immediately, after being handed over, I'm going to hand off straight away to the fabulous Chris Tuckett, Director of Programmes, who will now be chairing a live chatette and a bit of Q&A with fellow members of the programmes team. Chris, it's over to you.
Thank you, Blowfish, and thank you for the fabulous. That's marvellous. You're looking fabulous yourself. Wonderful. Hello, everybody. Right, I'm going to do the screen share challenge now. We're all used to it, aren't we? Let's have a go at this and see how it goes. Yes. Okay, so in a minute, I'm going to be joined by some of the team who know a lot more about this subject than I do. But first of all, I'm going to give you a brief introduction on blue-green recovery, what that means and where we're going with it. This is a night of ocean optimism, but I've got to start with a bit of realism first, I'm afraid. The state of our marine environment in the UK is not good. It's not good. Last year, the government's the UK published a report which said 11 out of 15 indicators of marine health are failing. That's seabirds, sea habitats, the bottom of the sea, the marine litter, all sorts of aspects that are measured in terms of the health of our sea are failing, and it needs to recover. Ocean needs to recover. As Amanda and others were saying earlier, through COVID-19, we've all, in different ways, had a tough time, and the effect's been profound. Of course, it's been profound, and it's still going on. But there's also been an impact on our seas, both good and bad. Certainly, there have been more wildlife sightings. During that first lockdown, there were quite a lot more sightings of things like whales and dolphins. That might have been because there was less disturbance and less noise, or it might just have been because that we were out there looking more. We don't know, but certainly there was something going on. There seems to be more wildlife out there. At the same time, we've seen the reports about the fact that we are more interested in wildlife. We're more interested in nature. And through this pandemic and the crisis, really we sought solace in nature. That's broadly across the board, but certainly it's related to the marine environment as well. And of course, as soon as lockdown finished and there was a sniff that we could possibly go outside, we all did, and we headed to the beach. This was Bournemouth on the 25th of June. You'll remember the headlines from this as well, and an emergency was declared. Yeah, the beach is the place that we want to go to, isn't it? Of course, it was hot and sunny then, it would be, but there's an attraction about our sea that's really important to all of us. Now, we've just been talking about PPE, personal protective equipment, face masks. Tamsin mentioned that a Great British Beach Clean this year, which I'm sure a lot of you went out and helped with, and thank you for that. Almost 30% of the beaches that we surveyed had PPE on them, which is a great shame, and we need to be looking at that. And those environmental impacts of coronavirus and the situation that we're in at the moment for the marine environment are compounded by the impact on our coastal communities. It may not always be apparent, but some of our coastal communities, some of them are the most deprived in the country. Average pay is nearly 5,000 less for those people in those communities than it is for the rest of the UK. And of course, the situation that we're in at the moment, a lot of those people are employed in tourism and the sorts of industries that have been affected most by lockdown. So there's a real economic impact on those communities right now, laid on top of what there was before all this started. So blue recovery, what are we talking about? What does it look like? The Prime Minister, you'll have heard the announcements over the past few weeks and days about green recovery and building back better and all those sorts of terms. Absolutely, there is green recovery, or I hope there will be, but it also applies to the marine environment as well. One of the most important things, one of the biggest announcements, is about offshore wind. So Boris was saying a few weeks ago, and I repeated it yesterday, that all UK homes could be powered by offshore wind by 2030. That's a massive increase. It's a fourfold increase, or a quadrupling of the amount of offshore wind that we've got at the moment. No doubt this is needed. At MCS, we do feel that it's needed, and it's really important because climate change is one of the, if not, well, it's the biggest threat to our marine environment. But the siting of the wind farms, how they operate, how they're installed, all of those things have got a risk to our marine environment. So this has got to be done right. Also, you'll have heard on the headlines about fisheries and Brexit and trade deals. It's possible that our fishing industry will have a greater share of quotas to be able to go and catch more fish post-Brexit. But it's also really important that that's done sustainably. At MCS, we've been involved in the fisheries bill really heavily. That's just about to finish its passage through Parliament. It's not great, it needs some improvements, but there are possibilities there that fishing could be more sustainable in the future. And if it was, actually, as you'll see from this slide, it could recover fish stocks, and recovered fish stocks actually mean that you can take more fish. So real scrutiny on how our fishing is done, where it's done, and making sure it's sustainable for the future is really important, and that can have a positive impact on jobs. The other part alongside fisheries is aquaculture, not just salmon farming, but also shellfish, growing of shellfish, and even seaweed. Those are industries that we see increasing. It might not be huge, but in terms of green or blue recovery, that's something that's quite significant. And of course, if we have sustainable seafood, then also it's good from a carbon point of view. It's a really low carbon source of protein, and that's good for climate. Circular economy, we've been talking about rubbish on beaches. We've been talking about circular economy, which is basically reducing our amount of waste, and thinking about that from the outset so that we have products that have a longer lifespan, that are reusable, and absolutely are made from more recycled materials. If we can really re-engineer that industry, then again, that could create jobs, bringing in things like deposit return schemes, which Amanda mentioned we've been lobbying for a long time, and there's some movement on that. They are important, and again, positive from an economic point of view. And finally, the new kid on the block is, again, what Amanda mentioned, blue carbon. So there is so much talk about planting trees and looking after peat bogs and things like that from a climate point of view. Absolutely, that's really important. But did you know that actually it's also important from a marine point of view? Seagrass beds, salt marsh, sand dunes, sea kelp, the muddy seashell sediments, these all capture lots of carbon. And if you look after them right, then they can capture more. By recovering those habitats, you get a bonus for biodiversity. Potentially you get a bonus in terms of fish as well, because they're nursery grounds, but you also absolutely get a bonus in terms of carbon capture. That's got a price on it. So economically, it's a really good thing too, and something that we're thinking about in the lead up to COP26. So MCS is involved in the majority of the things that I've been talking about here. Aside from the wind power stuff, but we're looking at that too. These are areas that we're operating in. We'll be doing more of that in the future because it is really important, but we are looking for the win-wins. We are looking for recovery of our marine environment alongside recovery of the economy and looking at carbon as well. And the other bit that this slide shows, this is a really nice diagram that Josh did in the team, so I wanted to show it. It shows that all of this is integrated. We can't just think about the sea on its own. We need to think about the interaction with the land and rivers and so on, and estuaries. And we also need to think about spatially where everything is, and not just what happens on the surface, but what happens underneath the surface as well. So when all of this is over, and we hope it will be over before too long, I think there is reason for optimism. There are things that we can and will be looking at as far as blue recovery goes, and we absolutely look forward to doing it. Now, I am going to stop sharing, and I'm going to introduce people from my team who I hope are going to put their screens on. So I'd like to introduce to you Jill Bell, who's our lead in Wales for MCS, Calum Duncan, our lead in Scotland, and Peter Richardson, who's our head of ocean recovery, just a little job that Peter's got. Jill, I wanted to come to you first. I've given a really quick canter through of blue recovery and what it means, and I've sort of looked at it kind of UK-wide. But you lead in Wales. What does it look like for Wales, and what do you think the possibilities are there?
Diolch, Chris. I'm from Howard Dow. Well, we're quite fortunate in that our First Minister is quite sympathetic to the climate and environmental emergency. And Wales is starting from quite a good position in that about half of Welsh seas are already within some form of protection. But MCS needs to make sure that these are well managed if they're going to benefit everyone and if they're going to bring about the blue recovery that we need. Fisheries management is also improving with new measures to have fully documented fisheries in Wales, along with the new vessel monitoring systems, which will then allow Welsh Government to know when, where and what fishes are actually catching in Wales, and this will enable better management. Wales is also one of the top recyclers in the world, And MCS have been saying that although we applaud that, recycling is lower down the waste hierarchy, and that there needs to be a focus on reduce, repair and reuse. And we welcome the recent Welsh Government Beyond Recycling consultation. Within the next few years, we'll also see the fruits of our hard work that we've been working towards with things like deposit return systems and the banning of non-essential single-use plastic items, as well as extended producer responsibility, all becoming law, which will significantly reduce our ecological footprint on non-renewable resources.
Thank you, Jill. Calum, I said that we were operating in lots of different areas. Up in Scotland, you've been involved with some really good projects that are around the kind of ocean recovery, possibly blue recovery theme. Do you want to tell us a bit about some of that?
Yes, thanks, Chris. Good evening, everyone. So in Scotland, conservation's devolved. The Scottish Government's acknowledged the climate emergency, an early adopter of the Sustainable Development Goals. The MPA network, with the addition of this vast West of Scotland MPA, now covers 34% of the seas. And it's also about adding value to existing MPAs. And we're very proud, founding partners with Glenmorangie and Heriot-Watt University of the DEEP project at Dornoch Firth, which is aiming to restore eventually 4 million native oysters there. And the journey has started with 12,000 in, a little behind because of the pandemic, but fantastic work by Heriot-Watt. And other achievements lately has been commitment to ecosystem-based fisheries management in Scotland. But that optimism is to be tempered with a bit of realism. We need to complete the MPA network, and thanks to everybody that responded to the basking shark campaign last year. We still don't have those big MPAs inshore, those new ones, and we need to get management measures in place for the remaining sites. So the next steps for us, the potential in Scotland, looking over the next 10 years, is we need to get nature recovery targets in law. We need to get a pathway to at least 30% of our seas highly protected. We need to transform fisheries management, and we need massive investment in ocean recovery. So we've come a long way, we've got a long way to go.
Brilliant, thank you, Calum. And Peter, we're talking blue recovery. That's something that you've been looking at recently, lead up to COP26 and all that kind of thing. What do you think genuinely the potential is for the marine environment in terms of carbon capture?
Thanks, Chris. Well, I think it's huge. I mean, that's actually the good news. I mean, the bad news is that we've got 10 years to really sort it out. It's the biggest issue that's facing humanity. And in order to mitigate the worst effects of climate catastrophe, we've really got to get our act together. Now, the good news is that the sea can help us. We think that ocean-based solutions can contribute at least 25% of the reduction in carbon emissions that we've got to do. And we've got to implement in order to avoid the worst effects of climate change. And there are sort of three main areas really where there's a lot of opportunity. Calum's already mentioned marine protected areas. So we've made quite good progress with marine protected areas over the last decade. I think we've got about 357 in UK waters. They cover about 36% of our seas. Unfortunately, while they're designated, most of them aren't particularly well managed. And that is the big challenge. We've got to manage those MPAs and make sure that they're properly protected. Now, people might have heard the term blue carbon. The sort of poster child blue carbon habitats are seagrass and salt marsh. And blue carbon is obviously where it is the process of marine ecosystems storing and locking down carbon. And so we have some seagrass and some salt marsh, and those are very important blue carbon habitats, and they should be protected and they should be restored. But we've also got a massive standing stock of carbon in our sediments in the shelf seas. It's something like 200 megatons of carbon. And at the moment, that's not protected. And if it's disturbed through activities such as bottom tow fishing gear, which will disturb it, it can reduce the actual storage capacity of our sediments by something like 50%. And of course, that carbon, once it's disturbed, will go up into the water column and eventually make its way back into the atmosphere, although those processes are still not fully understood. But the key thing is that we have that carbon store and we've got to protect it. I mean, in English seas alone, we've got something like 50,000 square kilometers of offshore marine protected areas, which currently are not protected. There are lines on maps, and trawling is allowed pretty much willy-nilly in those. So that has to change. Those marine protected areas need to be highly protected, and we need to take a whole site approach so that we can exclude the damaging activities, not only damage the biodiversity and the seafloor, but also damage our ability to store carbon. The other opportunity, I think, is in fish carbon. So fish carbon is kind of like the carbon with fins. It's been estimated that in our waters, our standing stock of fish sequester about 1 million tons of carbon every year. So we've really got to look after our fish stocks, and that involves proper sustainable fisheries management. And that's something that Sam Stone, our head of fisheries and aquaculture, will be talking a bit about in his session later on. So please do try and join him for that. And the third big opportunity are some very exciting opportunities for growth, low carbon growth in our seas. And I'm not just talking about renewable energy, which we've all heard a lot about over the last few days, and is really important for helping us reach net zero. But there are also opportunities in innovative aquaculture. Now, I'm not talking about salmon farms where we know they have impacts on the environment and on species. I'm talking about new forms of aquaculture that are being adopted in other parts of the world that we've got the habitat here for, such as kelp agriculture, seaweed aquaculture, more aquaculture involving shellfish. And these are sort of opportunities that we haven't yet taken advantage of, but may provide real opportunities for the deprived coastal economies that you were talking about earlier. Now, the problem, as our aquaculture manager will tell you, Dawn Purchase, is that at the moment there's not a huge market for a lot of these innovative products in the UK. So there's a real need not only to incentivize the development of these opportunities, but also to develop markets within the UK. And we haven't got time to waste. We have to make transformational changes in order to meet the challenges of climate change, and we've really got to start thinking differently. And as I said, the good news is that our seas can help us do that. We've just got to think more creatively about how they can help us.
Absolutely. Thank you, Peter. And I think it's going to be exciting next year, isn't it? There's a lot of things to look forward to, and I think to push for, and to me it feels like a new dimension in terms of how we look at the marine environment, and it gives us bluntly an extra lever if we look at it from a carbon and the climate point of view as well. We haven't got loads of time left, but one question that's come in has been about the B word, about Brexit. The question is, what measures have been taken to prevent worsening of the situation for the marine environment after Brexit? Calum, I know we talk a lot, and with Jill, about how we work across the different countries of the UK. Can you give us a little bit of perspective of, again, in Scotland, what Brexit might mean?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a bill currently going through the Scottish Parliament. As I mentioned, conservation is devolved. And this bill, the Continuity Scotland Bill, is all about ensuring the carryover of the EU law into Scots law, because Scotland has its own legal system and always has. And it's important that Continuity Bill delivers an independent watchdog doing the job that the European Commission has done so well to date. And that was key to getting the Firth of Lorne protected with David Ainsley's excellent work, to enshrine EU principles in law as well. So we're part of a campaign with Link called Fight for Scotland's Nature, to get that continuity bill as strong as possible, to get an independent watchdog as strong as possible, but we'll still also need new legislation to put nature, including ocean recovery targets, in law. So work's being done, but it needs to be, the laws need to be stronger.
Great. And Jill, I mean, again, similar situation, I think, for Wales, but kind of final few words around what you see as the future for next year and the potential impact that Brexit might have.
Thanks, Chris. One of the main things that I'm quite concerned about is the future laws on protection, because we do have a lot of environmental protection currently, and some of it's not being used and delivered by the governments as it should. So we have this thing called the European Court of Justice, which is the big stick really that we use to threaten governments with that are not doing what they're supposed to be doing for protection. And we're going to lose this when we leave the EU. And its replacement, a new environmental watchdog, will need to be independent and be able to do scrutiny of this and provide advice and enforcement for environmental law. And that will make Welsh ministers and other, all the other devolved, will make them accountable for their actions. And it's of concern to us that presently, as we leave in January, there's been no real public open discussion about what this new watchdog will do and what it will look like in Wales or elsewhere. And we really need that, because there are good protection laws currently. We need them implemented. We need a way to be able to hold the governments to account and make sure that once we leave the EU, those laws are still in place and they will abide by them.
Thank you very much, Jill, and thank you very much all the team. We could talk about that one for ages. We are now going to go to a break for 15 minutes. Thank you all for watching. Thanks to everybody here. Come back in 15 minutes time when you'll be hearing from wildlife cameraman Doug Allan, and I think you'll see Calum again in a little bit. In the meantime, go and get your drinks, cup of coffee, whatever you want. Lovely to see you. Thank you.
In the UK, you are never more than 70 miles from the coast. Our seas, our beautiful seas, support so much life. They're just as rich and beautiful as anywhere in the world. But they need looking after. Whose job is it to protect them? Yours? Mine? It's everyone's. But we've taken it on with a passion. In fact, we've been the voice for our seas for over 30 years. So what have we achieved so far? Our research is an essential part of the fight to save our seas. We clean miles and miles of coastline and record what we find. Our data helps drive change. We've made it easy to choose sustainable seafood. Fish suppers can be guilt-free. Most importantly, we influence policy and law to protect beneath the waves. We love connecting people with the sea, and we need your help to guard our seas for the future. We are the Marine Conservation Society. Join us, because with your support, we can do even more.
Hello, I'm Gordon Buchanan. This is my dog Stuart, and we are sitting on this beautiful autumn day on one of the islands on Loch Lomond. It's just glorious. I've been a wildlife filmmaker for about 30 years now, and I've kind of been, I didn't want to say I've been everywhere, but I've been to so many wonderful places around the world. Most recently, I'll tell you a little bit about this. It's kind of a fascinating project. We were in Cape Verde working with a team of scientists and conservationists that are helping loggerhead turtles. So what they're doing is preserving the beaches, trying to do their best to preserve the beaches, safeguarding the nest, protecting the eggs, protecting the hatchlings, and what they want to do ultimately is protect the marine environment. And it's so far it's a success story. They're doing incredible work. It's a small team. If it weren't for them, these turtles in Cape Verde would soon disappear. So, you know, there's not that many feel-good stories in the natural world at the moment, but that is one of them. I'm just going to answer some questions that have been pre-prepared for me, and try and make the answers as exhilarating and exciting as possible. So where in the world has been my favourite place to film, and what were you filming there? Do you know, I don't have a favourite place. There's been so many places that I've just had amazing wildlife encounters, and it doesn't have to be, you know, far-flung exotic locations. Earlier this year I was filming ospreys in Scotland in the Trossachs, and that was just, it was glorious. The weather was phenomenal. You've got a really charismatic bird of prey, but I love the Arctic. In 2014 I spent several months in the high Arctic on Ellesmere Island filming wolves, and that was exceptional because the wolves up there they've never seen human beings before, so they haven't learnt to have a fear of people. So there was this, you know, golden opportunity to be in one of the most special places in the world with this remarkable, iconic animal that had no fear of us. And you know, we've got a lot of preconceived ideas about wolves and should we be scared of them, and yeah, after I got over my initial fear of being so close to a pack of wolves, it was an absolute joy. And if I had the opportunity to go anywhere again, it would be to go back to Ellesmere Island and try and catch up with those wolves. Next question is, what was it like spending the year with the polar bears in Svalbard? It was very exciting. I'd spent the previous year filming black bears, and in that series we were trying to get across the point that we have these irrational fear of bears, that we shouldn't vilify animals because sort of often we don't portray their true nature. With polar bears, we should have a healthy respect for them because they are one of the few creatures on the planet that on occasions see human beings as food. I'd been to the Arctic before, but this was the first time that I'd been there when it was still locked in ice. And Svalbard is an extraordinary place, and to spend time following polar bears was hard to describe, really. They are such a beautiful animal, but how they live their lives is truly extraordinary. The fact that they can survive in the kind of conditions that we struggle to get from 1 minute to the next, and the fact that they can do that for months and months through the winter with no daylight. They are kind of one of those miracles of nature, gifts of evolution. And what I loved about it is we followed one family, or one mother with cubs, and we were with her right at the start in March, April time, and we followed her as late as we could, sort of up into September. So yeah, I think my words don't really do that experience justice. It was, you know, a remarkable opportunity in a remarkable place with a truly remarkable creature. My battery might be running out. The next question is, what was it like spending time with a tribal group on a little island in the South Pacific? It was as amazing as it sounds. This is a community that live on this tiny dot of an island in the Solomon Islands, and they have this very simple existence. They grow some fruit and vegetables on land, but fishing is how they sustain themselves. And sustain's a good word, because for hundreds of years it was sustainable, but because of outside pressures, because of industrial fishing, it's really impacted on their lives. So it was quite a sad experience in some ways, because you realise this tribal group that want to carry on living as they do. They are perfectly happy. They have everything that they need, but what they're seeing is sort of fewer and fewer fish, fewer and fewer sharks around the island in which that has supported them for for a very long time. So yeah, it was sort of bittersweet. It's fascinating to learn sort of about their relationship with sharks, because you know, their sort of livelihoods depended on them going to sea and spending most of their days out on the water, sometimes fishing from boats, but for the two men, Moses and Sosimo, that I was filming with, they've been free divers their whole life, so they're getting into these waters and seeing sharks on a daily basis. And yes, it's kind of, they are saddened by the fact that there's fewer fish for them to catch, but they're saddened by the fact that there are fewer sharks. They're seeing this change happening, and sadly, because of the naivety of their existence, they don't see what's causing it. And really, if you go 100 miles offshore from where they are and there's large-scale plundering of the oceans, that is what's impacting on this little tribal group that, yeah, want to keep on living and working as they have been for generations. The second to last question is, what was my best ocean encounter and what was my worst? Definitely the worst was up in Svalbard. We were coming down sort of round the sort of southern cape of Svalbard in this horrific 48-hour storm. We were the only boat at sea. We were actually kind of rushing back to Longyearbyen to catch a flight home, so we really shouldn't have been out on the water. We were in a fairly big ship, but it was absolutely terrifying. At no point in that 48 hours did I think, I'm not going to die. It felt like we were at the end. The waves were so huge that the ship was not just rocking back and forward, it was sliding down the waves, going into the trough and back up again. So yeah, that wasn't particularly pleasant. My best ocean encounter couldn't be any more different. Back in 2004, I spent a week on an old converted fishing boat, liveaboard, off the west coast of Scotland. So we left Tobermory and round. We had a week of the most beautiful weather you could ever hope for, and we saw almost everything that there was to see. We saw dolphins, basking sharks, some amazing encounters with minke whales, and it just, you know, I've had a lifelong passion for the west coast of Scotland, and I kind of felt so kind of blessed and rewarded. And that 1 week that we'd picked out of a whole summer of terrible weather, we got this sort of 7 days where Scotland was really at its best, and that marine environment just sort of delivered for us. So I kind of always sort of think if I never have to set foot on a boat again, I'd be happy, because that was just such an extraordinary experience, and right in a place that I felt at home. So the last question, and it's a big one: how optimistic am I about the future of the oceans? When I've spent time with scientists and conservationists, NGOs, bodies that are working to protect the marine environment and species, it's quite easy to be brimming with hope and optimism, because you realise what can be done, but what should be done is a different matter. And pole to pole, you realise the threats that our oceans face. So all I can say is, personally, I have hope, in so much as I am committed to spending the rest of my life highlighting the plight of endangered species, vulnerable ecosystems around the world. And I've got the oceans have a special place in my heart. I grew up by the sea. It's a place that makes me feel at home. It's a place that fills me full of wonder, and the oceans are an inspiring place. So if I can take that sort of the inspiration that I get from the oceans and transfer that into hope, yeah, I think I can be optimistic, but so much needs to be done by so many people. Thanks for listening.
Hi, I'm Lily and I'm 8 years old, and yeah, that's me. I like the beach because there's lots of things to do there, like build sandcastles and have ice lollies there. But I don't like it when it's all windy and you get all wet and cold. But it's fun when you go in the sea. If you don't clean up beaches, like the whole beach is just going to be covered in rubbish and no one's going to care. And then the environment's going to be all stinky and horrible. I like beach cleanups because it's keeping the environment very clean, and if you don't clean up your rubbish, you could be killing an animal. Every time a rubbish goes on the ground and not in the bin, it's another animal like a fox dead, because they can always get their head stuck in a plastic bag or cut themselves on a can or something. When I'm walking on the beach, I like to think about just having fun and how fun my day is going to be on the beach.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. It's me, it's Tom the Blowfish Hird, the world's only heavy metal marine biologist, chairing the MCS AGM. And I did it last year, and they didn't learn. They didn't learn from last year, so they've got double trouble this year. Hello, and welcome back from the break. And if you're just joining us, if you're just signing on, welcome all. A bit more housekeeping, because we want to keep you on your top game here. Don't forget, if you want to chat about tonight, please do, using the old socials and all that. The hashtag Ocean Optimism. So get out there, get using the hashtag. And those of you who are paying attention will also notice the captions appearing. Don't be afraid of the delay. Nothing can keep up with the yammering that comes out of my lips. So the poor caption machine hasn't got a chance. But the captions are there, and they'll also be saved onto the shows for later. Okay, so that's the standard welcome back housekeeping. All right, now we've got a real winner of a bit of content, as we say in the media business, coming up now with the fantastic and forever dangerous Doug Allan. Okay, he's a wildlife cameraman, filmmaker. He's just done a book, a very nice little book. Christmas is coming up, might suit for you, called Freeze Frame, which is incredibly apt for a cameraman that does a lot of stuff in the ice. I think that's quite clever. And it's actually available free to those signing up to MCS Life membership. So, just throwing that out there. Now, for those of you that don't know Doug, okay, he's small, Scottish, and dangerous, but he is absolutely fabulous. He spent 7 years working in Antarctica for the British Antarctic Survey. He then changed directions in 1984, so he's been around a while, Doug, but he knows his stuff, because he went from the British Antarctic Survey straight into full-time freelance underwater filming. And since then, well, he's just gone on to amazing feats. He's become one of the world's best known and most respected underwater cameramen. He's taken part in things like The Blue Planet, Frozen Planet, Human Planet. What else has he done? Ocean Giants, Operation Iceberg. He's been all over the place, okay? And he has got a fabulous little bit of chat for us now. He can't be with us tonight, but I'm going to say a big hello to Doug.
Greetings and a very warm welcome to all MCS members, wherever you are. Thank you, Tom. Thanks for that intro. I was thinking while you spoke that Ben Garrett, one of the other MCS ambassadors, is something of an expert on dinosaurs, and I have to say that I feel a bit like one here. I was born and raised in Scotland. I began diving 52 years ago. I joined MCS in 1984, so being one of your ocean ambassadors, that's a real honour. And for the last 40 odd years, I've been fortunate to see a lot of the world's oceans, working initially for the British Antarctic Survey and then filming for the BBC and others. I can see now that there was a huge awareness of marine environmental issues from around the late 60s until the late 70s. But then for 30 years, all kinds of influencers somehow persuaded us to more or less lose the plot and buy lots of crap instead. In that time, I was swanning around the world filming the animals, but I wonder now, did the movie business ever really grasp the nettle of raising public concern as much as it should have? Well, thank goodness that over that time, the MCS did. They continued to press for changes, they initiated and ran truly worthwhile campaigns, held the powers that be responsible for causing some of the issues, and took the message high into government. We may have had the recent announcement of the Earth shot by David Attenborough and Prince William, the COVID moon shot proposed by our Prime Minister, but I have to say that I think MCS have been doing a sea shot in all kinds of different ways for way, way longer. Seasearch, Beach Watch, wild bottle sightings, Stop the Plastic Tide. Those are really effective campaigns, and we're now beginning to make up the lost ground in terms of awareness of the public and governments getting off their bums to do something, I hope. So all praise for the Marine Conservation Society. And tonight, I have the very real privilege to recognise the accomplishments of that branch of MCS based in my birthplace. I'm honoured to present this far too short video of some of the achievements of MCS Scotland. I hope you enjoy it, and thank you very much. Back in 2000, Calum Duncan opened our first Scottish office in Edinburgh, and 20 years later we're still here. Early on, Calum was joined by Dawn Purchase. She began our pioneering aquaculture programme, which is now a global force. In 2005, our volunteer diving project, Seasearch, was boosted with 2 Scottish-based staff. And we got even bigger with a Scotland Projects Officer to steer our work cleaning up Scotland's seas and beaches. Through successful joint campaigning that we led, the Marine Scotland Act was passed in 2010. This is a vital law that makes it the government's duty to promote recovery of the seas and to establish a network of marine protected areas. Volunteers are at the heart of MCS, and in 2012, Sea Champions Scotland was launched, training and supporting hundreds of willing helpers for our projects. And in 2014, with partners, supported by over 10,000 public responses and backed up with inshore results from Seasearch, we helped to secure 30 new nature conservation marine protected areas, including the largest in Europe. Then again in 2014, this time relying on information gathered from Beach Watch, we ensured that the 5p carrier bag charge was introduced in Scotland. We've received support from players of People's Postcode Lottery, who have raised over £2.6 million for MCS since 2015. In 2016, the joint Don't Take the Pee campaign that we led resulted in measures to protect Scotland's most vulnerable inshore sites from damaging fishing. It was a great start, but there's a lot more still needs to be done. Working with Glenmorangie and Heriot-Watt University, and as part of our award-winning DEEP project, we've helped to return native oysters to the Dornoch Firth for the first time in over a century. Following years of campaigning with Have You Got the Bottle?, Scotland's First Minister commits to a deposit return scheme for bottles and cans. In 2019, Beachwatch data played a key part in securing a Scotland ban on plastic-stemmed cotton buds, while the Seasearch programme helped to make the Loch Carron MPA permanent. 2020 is Scotland's Year of Coasts and Waters, and it's also the 20th anniversary of our Scottish team. Thanks for being part of our story so far, and here's to the next 20 years. Slán Java. So here we are. Me with the two great makers and shakers and movers of the Scottish MCS. Good to meet you again, guys. I remember I learned to dive with the Fife Sub-Aqua Club. So we used to go out to Fife Ness and sometimes down to Dunbar and places like that. But the one that really hit me was when we went to Ullapool. We used to go to Ullapool for a week in the summer. And my friend and I got up there a little bit before the others. And we had a boat, and we went out. If you go just north of Ullapool, up the hill and round, you go into what's called I forget the next bay up. But anyway, out in the bay, there's an isle called Isle Martin, and we went out there, and I don't know, I have never seen visibility like it in UK, either before then or since. It must have been 30, 40 metres, and we just could see the kelp down below. I remember picking out a dogfish, on the sand from, me floating 10, 15 metres above it. It was just the best dive I'd ever made, and that made, a big impression on me. Can you think, has there been one moment like that for you, Calum, or is it just, big things? I mean, is there any animal experience that you've had in Scotland that particularly stands out, or just a simple dive?
Seeing a massive spiny lobster we were diving off muck, quite a remote sort of pinnacle. But I remember on this pinnacle, just sort of fixated on what I was recording, the bryozoans and the sponge and so on. And then these orange tentacles came into my view, and I looked up, and there was this enormous spiny lobster, biggest I've ever seen, like literally bursting out its shell, needing to and that always sticks in the memory. But there's so many. My first sightings of tall sea pens in Loch Nevis, Celtic feather stars off Lismore. I've been very lucky to Seasearch. Fantastic.
How about you, Catherine? How long have you been busy underwater?
So I learnt to dive with the Aberdeen Student Sub-Aqua Club when I joined university. Had always wanted to go diving, but my first experience, as many of us who maybe learnt to dive in Scotland, was in Cove Harbour, just south of Aberdeen. And I still remember, being this close to my instructor and struggling to see them in the lovely murky visibility, which I think
the East Coast is famed for its visibility,
isn't it? But I was still absolutely hooked. I still remember that very first dive with my instructor Rowan, getting excited about seeing seaweed underwater. And then since then, having dived all over Scotland, UK, and when I've been on holiday and traveling, it just gets me so excited every time. One of the ones that I'll take with me forever was actually during a week's diving up in Orkney on Scapa Flow. So some of the deepest, most technical diving I've ever done. But I'd taken the Wednesday afternoon off diving, just to have a break, and two porpoise started following the boat that we were on. So the skipper, Emily, she skippers the Huskian, was absolutely amazing with me. She was like, do you want to just jump in with your mask and snorkel and like a surface marker buoy so I can find you and see if you can see them? And then I spent the next half an hour with one of the porpoises just coming closer and closer, properly just trying to check out what I was. And I was just kind of stood upright in the water with this incredible animal just coming closer and probably like turning on their side and looking me in the eye. And it was just absolutely incredible.
Well, it's funny, what they say about dolphins is that, as soon as you go in the water, they know you're there and they're pinging you with their ultrasonics and things. And they say that the best way to get a dolphin to come to look at you is, first of all, to be female rather than male, because they're always more interested in females. But pregnant females, if you go diving when you're pregnant, then they really like to come in and see you. I've yet to absolutely prove that, but you know, knowing what I've seen about dolphins, it wouldn't surprise me at all if that was true. What's the most enjoyable campaign you've been involved with? Not necessarily the most effective, but you know, what's the most enjoyable campaign?
I have to say this was both sort of ticks enjoyable and success box, but genuinely so. So I've had the privilege of leading a campaign project called Save Scottish Seas for quite a few years. But we started that out in 2007 to get the Scottish legislation to deliver new marine protected areas, the Marine Scotland Act. And on the one hand, it's quite daunting because you're making the case to get the funding in and you're coordinating it and you're working with all your other wonderful organisations as part of that partnership. But then you've got the chance to kind of try and distill quite a complex message into something quite simple. And we ended up with a postcard with a basking shark on it, which was big mouth, no voice. You know, just to sort of, we are the voice for on behalf of all these creatures, you know. And we basically, you know, we were all the organisations were at all the events over the summer getting the postcards. I think there was some online stuff as well, but most of it was actually physical postcards. And it really, you know, you're really right there with the public, most of whom look at you like, you know, what are you talking about, you know? And then if you get the people and they're interested or finding a way to engage them, and it's a real, you know, it's really crucial that, because, you know, for the sort of campaigns to work, they've got to pass that kind of common sense test. I think people have to get it and invest in it.
You pointed out a wonderful example there, a poster of a basking shark with big mouth, no voice. I mean, that's, you know, that's just great, because like it or not, these little sound bites are what, you know, they go so much further than just the 3 or 4 words that they're made up with. So, no, I think, as I say, I really love that imaginative and sometimes not taking yourself too seriously means that the thing is taken more seriously. If you give it a lightness of touch in the way you brand it, then that's actually more effective than coming over all heavy. One thing that's always tickled me is, and I wonder, Catherine, who dreams up the hashtags for your campaigns, for example? I mean, that one, you know, wild bottle sighting, that is just, you know, that is great. Or have you got the bottle? That's the other. I mean, obvious, but you know, it's really important to get that sort of, you know, tagline early on, isn't it?
It really is, and I think definitely a couple of years ago, some of the best campaigning and communication ideas came up not during work time, but usually having a drink in the pub after work, and that's where all these hashtags usually get dreamed up. But the Have You Got the Bottle campaign's probably one of my personal highlights over the last 5 years, working with the charity APRS. And it's only by coming together with other people and having these brainstorms, coming up with these what seem to be slightly daft ideas in the pub, and then the next day being like, no, that would work. If we find it funny or we connect to it, other people will as well. And you're right, the wild bottle sighting hashtag was so successful in getting people involved in something that sounded quite dry, like deposit return schemes.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, I'm not trying to downplay the country that I now live in, but I do feel that Scotland, you know, is ahead of the game in things like the deposit return scheme and all that. And again, it just seems to be something that, because of it's just easier to get a big message over to the people and get them to approve of it, and then get the Parliament to pass it, and then get the whole thing, you know, sweeping into action seems to be easier done up north than, you know, than it is down south. And you know, I think that the people, there's no doubt that, you know, I'm not going to butter you both up, but there's no doubt that, you know, the work, I think you're smiling there, you see, but there's no doubt that the work MCS Scotland does, is really crucially important. And I want to take this, you know, this chance to thank you both, you know, for everyone, and everyone up in Scotland to do it, for doing, you know, such a cool job over the last 20 years. And, you know, here's to the next 20.
It's been a busy 20 years, it's flown by, but we've only just started. And by 2030, we want to see at least 30% of Scotland's seas highly protected, at least a third of that fully protected. We need 21st century fisheries legislation. We need nature recovery targets for the ocean in law. We need to ramp up investment for ocean recovery. So you can help us to get started.
All power to you guys up north, and thanks for talking to me.
That's fantastic. Thanks very much, Doug. It's been a pleasure.
So thank you so much, Doug. It's been a wonderful conversation, and thank you to all of you who've tuned in to watch us. It's a night of ocean optimism, but for us up in Scotland, ocean optimism is what we kind of strive for every day. So hopefully, if you live in Scotland or you're visiting us, make sure to get in touch, and we'll hopefully see you on a beach sometime soon.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Yes, it's still me. They haven't got rid of me yet. Neither have the technical demons. I return to guide you through this evening of the MCS AGM. It's always going lovely, isn't it? Oh, it's going lovely, which is a good thing too, because we had a bit of a break. Obviously, you all saw that. And I thought, well, I need to, re-energize myself, something, packed full of goodness and carbohydrates and all the right kind of things. So I ate a donut, but this donut supposedly was meant to be full of vanilla, but there was no custard. There was no vanilla custard. And that's how disappointing my little break was. Yeah. I hope yours was better. I hope you enjoyed the footage we've just had. And hopefully you're going to enjoy the breakout sessions, which are coming up next. So this is fantastic, right? I'm really keen on this, but got to be technical. So I'm going to read my notes. This in itself is dangerous. So now is the time to select the breakout room of your chosen session, okay? All the rooms are going to be monitored by first event. So when it's going to end, you're going to be informed to rejoin this, which is the main session, right? So you don't need to worry about missing anything. If you're looking at two sessions, thinking that one's good, not so sure. All the sessions will go up onto the MCS website in the next couple of days. So you're going to be able to see everything. You're not going to miss anything at all. But the one key thing here is the main window, this big main window here. This is breakout session 5, which is the digital dive. All the other sessions are beneath us. Now, if you go and select one of those other sessions, don't close this window, but do mute it. So there should be some instructions on the holding screen there. Follow those instructions. Don't close the window because we'll lose you. We don't want you to do that. But in the corner, you'll see like the classic volume bar, the different bars at different heights. Mute that down. Go and enjoy your session if you are leaving us. And when you're told to come back, make sure you unmute because, of course, you want to hear me in all my glory. So there we go. Be gone. Go and enjoy the sessions, and we will see you very soon indeed.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the most interesting breakout session of the evening. But I would say that, wouldn't I? Seasearch are going to take you on a whistle-stop tour of our seas, from the almost tropical Channel Islands in the far south to the rugged landscapes of Scotland that you've already seen in the north, to show you some of the most amazing marine wildlife that lives there. We're going to start in the shallows amongst the kelp forest, where there's plenty of sunlight for the seaweeds to grow and form lush meadows. Then we'll go a bit deeper and check out some of the animals living on and around the rocky reefs. And finally, we'll venture into the darkness of a Scottish sea loch, where wonderful anemones and sea pens emerge from the gloom. Standing at the coast and looking out at the often murky water, especially at this time of year, it can be difficult to believe what's under the surface. As divers and snorkelers, we're privileged to enter that watery world and bring back these images to share with you. You don't have to be a marine biologist to get involved with Seasearch. You just have to have an interest in the marine life and want to find out more. Record what you see, share your sightings with us, and help marine conservation. Our contact email address is shown at the end of the film. So if you have any questions, please type them into the chat box and we'll answer them at the end. But for now, sit back and enjoy the film. Hello everyone, welcome back. Did you enjoy that? Did anybody see the eel? It was lurking really quite dark in the kelp. It was very well hidden, I think. So some questions. We've had some questions come in. Sue H has said, I don't scuba dive, but I do spend time at the seashore in and out of the water. Is there any way I can get involved with Seasearch? Yes, Sue, you can. It was originally a program for divers and snorkelers, but if you're at the seaside and you see something interesting, you can certainly let us know. You can let the MCS know. If you take a picture, we can help you with identification. All of that would be great. We will engage with you and help you to know what you saw at the seaside. So it would be great to hear from you. Another question come in from Paul M. How has COVID affected the Seasearch program this year? Well, Paul, it's been a bit of a funny old year, I have to say. We have been getting out in the water. Obviously, during lockdown, really nothing happened at all. We were all, even those of us who live, at the coast, were trapped in our houses. But once the restrictions started to be lifted, we did have people going out and getting in the water and still sending in their sightings. So that was really important, that we didn't have a completely blank year in terms of sightings and data and everything. I live here at the coast in Dorset, and I've been getting out a lot in my local waters, snorkeling as well as diving. I have been out on a boat a bit, but it's been a very abnormal year this year, and I fear that it's probably going to be fairly similar next year, unfortunately. But I think the main thing is that we all stay safe, we do what we can, and we keep recording. Lots of questions coming in now. Lots of people saying it's an amazing film. Thank you for that. It is. UK marine wildlife is stunning. Everybody thinks you need to go to the tropics and dive on coral reefs, and you really don't. I love diving here in the UK in the sort of the colder green water. A question from David T. The lump sucker seemed to have pink spots. What was that? Unfortunately, these fish, they do get infected with sort of parasites that live on them, and that's what those bright pink spots were. And it seems to be particularly common with lump sucker. I don't know why, but they do seem to be prone to having those parasites living on them. So, and Jane's saying the film was very relaxing. I'm glad you enjoyed that, Jane. You can have it on as your background. So another Charlotte, well named. Do you think there'll be problematic gaps in our Seasearch data set because of COVID? There will be gaps, it's true. I think in general, we will have a gap in the data set. If anything's particularly spectacular happened this year, then yes, we will have missed it. We have had volunteers going out and sending data in, so it's not completely blank. We hope that most of the change we're seeing is slow enough that if we pick up again next year, we won't completely have missed things. But that's the trouble. It's very dynamic, the marine environment. You can have boom and bust years. Down here in Dorset, we had a couple of years where there were the big barrel jellyfish everywhere, and they arrived and they were literally in their thousands. And then the next year, they were all gone, and we don't really know why. So I hope we haven't missed anything like that, but time will tell, really. The fact we have got some data, so that's something. But Angus has asked, where do all the Seasearch records go? Oh, they go on a long and exciting journey. After our Seasearch volunteers, they fill in the forms at the end of their dive or their snorkel, and then they submit them either to me directly as the national coordinator or to their local coordinators. They collect all those in, they check them to make sure that the dive didn't take place in the car park, for instance, so it was actually in the sea. They check to see that nobody's recorded really unlikely things like blue whales in Portland Harbour, for instance. I mean, that would be fabulous, but not very likely. And then we collect all of the data up, and we have some really dedicated people who spend a long time in the winter typing all of that data into the Marine Recorder database. Then it all comes back, we check it again, and eventually it goes on to the National Biodiversity Network Atlas, and it's all public and anybody can see where those records are. So you can go and check on your own records. So that's great, you can actually see where it's going. Sarah has asked, do we have special cameras to film? It's very murky and everything looked grey-brown. What I use, it's a normal camera, but it's in a waterproof housing. Generally, the biggest problem is that unless you're very shallow, so if you're snorkeling, it's fine, there's lots of light, but otherwise you need special lights or strobes to light it up, so you can actually see the colours as they're supposed to be. But it's just it's a normal camera, really. I've got, I'm probably not allowed to say what I've got because it's advertising, but it's just a little compact camera and it works really well. Who else is it? Sally has said, where is my favourite dive site in the UK? Wow. Well, as I say, I live here in Portland in Dorset, so the fact that I can pretty much literally walk out of my front door and go diving in Chesil Cove, that's right up there. But really, I love everywhere. Everywhere you dive is different. Here in Dorset, it's slightly different from Devon. It's different again if we go up the English Channel towards Sussex. So everywhere I go, I find something new to look at. So I guess I don't really have a favourite dive site, sorry. Izzy has said, what was the animal name for how much it looks like crisps? The name was hilarious and the organism was spectacular. That's actually, it's a colony of tiny little animals called a bryozoan, or a sea mat, or a sea moss. And they do literally look like crisps. They can be anything up to 1 metre across. The really old ones, they grow very slowly, but they can be enormous. And they are stunning, and so much life lives on and in and around those bryozoans. They're really, really special, but they're quite fragile, so it's something else that's damaged by dredging and trawling and that kind of thing. I must get on. Stop waffling, Charlotte. Where's the most productive place I visited? I'm not sure what you mean by productive, Sarah. We'll come back to that. Maybe you'd like to elucidate, clarify that a bit, and I'll come back to that. Hannah has said, can you learn to dive with Seasearch? Unfortunately not. You do have to be a qualified diver already. And then you can join in with our organised surveys. But we would encourage you to join a local dive club, get involved there and learn to dive, and you can still do Seasearch with your local dive club as an independent person. Martin has said, will the offshore wind farms planned be a danger to sea life? Now that is a tricky question. During the construction phase, when they're actually installing the turbines, there is evidence that the noise pollution is a problem for cetaceans and other marine life. I think the jury is still out on whether it's a problem for migratory birds, depending on where they're sited. But once they're in place, they become kind of a de facto marine protected area, because generally you're not allowed to dredge or trawl in and around wind farms. And so it does afford a certain amount of protection to that area of the seabed, just by the fact that all of those turbines are there. So I hope that sort of answered your question, Martin. We could talk about that for hours, honestly. M. Hall has said, what's the difference between a bobtail squid and a cuttlefish? This is the problem with common names. The little cuttle, what we call a little cuttle, is also known as a bobtail squid. So they're very similar organisms, but they're not the same species. If you really want to be accurate about what you're calling something, you really need to use the scientific name. Unfortunately, sorry. Anna has said, the people who enter the data in the winter, are these volunteer roles? Unfortunately, this is something that we have to pay people to do, and they have to spend a lot of time developing the experience in order to what what we call biotoping, so actually putting the correct labels on all that data in terms of labeling the habitats. So Anna, I would encourage you to get involved with Seasearch, and then you can work up to being a data enterer if you like that sort of thing. That would be great. It will teach you an awful lot about marine life, having to use the marine recorder database, but I'm afraid it's not a standard volunteer role at the moment, sorry. Sarah, where have there been the most marine organisms present in one place? Whew. Well, you know what? The answer to this is probably one of the least sexy looking dive environments possible. And if you look at deep mud, and if you took a cubic meter of the mud, such as in Poole Harbour, that all the birds feed on in the winter, there is so much packed into that cubic meter. But you can't see any of it because it's all buried in the mud. In terms of stuff you can actually see, now there's a good one. Green seas, in terms of productivity and the overall food web, are much more productive than the blue, the open ocean, because of course we've got all the plankton and all of that stuff that is very difficult to see. In terms of really obvious stuff, reefs are generally where things congregate. You see all of the stuff that's on the reef, the seaweeds or the sponges and squirts and stuff, and all the fish around the reef. So from a visual point of view, probably this is why everybody likes diving on reefs, I think, rather than on muddy seabeds. But okay, another one, another Charlotte. It's great. There's loads of Charlottes on tonight. Who uses Seasearch data? I would say everybody, but they're used by statutory bodies, so the government, DEFRA, the nature conservation bodies like Natural England here in England, and Natural Resources Wales, Nature Scot, etc. All of those, they all use Seasearch data. Academics use Seasearch data. Environmental consultants use Seasearch data. It's all there on the NBN, on the National Biodiversity Network, and we've made a decision that should all be freely available, so anybody can use Seasearch data. When we did a survey of our volunteers, they agreed that our data should be freely available so everybody can use it, because that's what Seasearch is all about, putting those pins on the map, telling people what's out there. And then we can have informed decisions about our marine environment. If we don't tell everybody that a place is particularly special, or there's really rare animals or things living there, and we don't tell anybody, then we can't really complain if there's sort of activities going on that might damage those. So I think being open about our data is definitely the way forward. And then it's down to us as educated citizens to put pressure on, and for the MCS to campaign and to get you guys, to get everybody motivated to put that political pressure on. Martin has said, a plastic bag filmed at the bottom of the Marianas Trench last year. We definitely don't do Seasearch that deep, Martin. That's beyond us. Do we believe the campaign against the plastic bag is making progress? Oh, that's a tricky one. Is it making progress, or is it changing behaviour? I think it's certainly highlighted to people that we need to think about these things. That it's an away isn't away. People throw things away, and often it ends up in the sea, and because people don't see it, they believe it's gone. And I think it's very important that those of us who are the eyes under the sea can bring these things to wider attention, and then make people realize that you can't just chuck it away. It ends up somewhere. But and we've been told that that's it. I'm sorry, I could talk about marine life for hours, but I'm afraid that's it, people. So you had the contact address if you want to get involved. We'd love to hear from you. Hopefully lots more volunteers. So thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, I believe that I am back in the room, as it were, and hopefully you're all filtering back from your breakout sessions. I hope you all enjoyed that. That was fantastic. Just knowledgeable people, passionate people, you know, the experts and the fans of the ocean that you're speaking to. Well, they're just like you at home. You know, they're just people who want to make a difference and who are making a difference. So to have this kind of engagement tonight, hashtag Ocean Optimism, don't forget that. Superb. This is what the MCS is all about. Smashing it. Right. Anyway, we're going to go and have a little bit more of a break. I might try and get a donut this time that does have vanilla in it, fingers crossed. But we will be back at 7:10, so you've got about 15 minutes, when we'll be hearing from Liam Fowley, member of Scottish Youth Parliament, who will be giving us some tips on how to encourage young people to get involved with the old marine conservation. Okay, so we'll see you then, 15 minutes. Enjoy.
So today we are doing one of the Great British Beach Clean cleanups. We are finding so much on the beach and we'd much rather it goes in a bin bag than off out to sea.
The sea, well, it's really pretty. You can just see the pretty sparkles on it. A few days ago we came and there were PPE everywhere.
Like you're going in some of these caves and having fun and you just see tons of litter. It's kind of off-putting.
I would like to say a massive thank you to all of you who've helped with the Great British Beach Clean this year. You've made a massive difference. Thank you.
Hi everybody and welcome to this week's Tune In Tuesday. So this week we've got a really interesting video for you guys. A lot of you always ask, what do we actually find on our beach cleans? Well, today we are going to answer that question. Behind me you can see some of our dedicated Beach Guardian volunteers, and what they're doing is sorting through the bags of litter that we've picked off the last 5 beach cleans. Now the reason for this is because of the Marine Conservation Society's Great British Beach Clean, because this campaign has been running for over 2 decades now and directly monitoring the amount of plastic that's been littering our coastlines. So we've been running 5 different beach cleans, as I say, for this campaign, and the idea is not only do you have to remove the plastic from the environment, but also you have to quantify what exactly it is you are finding. So we've got the 5 bags of rubbish from the 5 different beach cleans, and they're now sorting through it to see what we found. So let's see what it is. votes are in. But first, let's hear from Jules, who is the Sea Champions Volunteer Coordinator and Community Engagement Manager for the Marine Conservation Society in the Southwest.
Well, this year was the 27th Great British Beach Clean, and it was a bit different, so we couldn't have thousands of people out there in big groups, so we did lots of little cleans, and we collected a lot of data, and it was actually really nice because we had a chance to chat in our small groups of 6 and really look at what we were finding and recording.
Awesome. And what would you say is the weirdest or coolest thing you've ever found on a beach clean?
So we find quite a few dental braces after the summer holidays, so dentistry gone wrong. We normally find, it's not cool at all, but usually find a pair of pants like this one here from Harlem Beach, often a shoe. It's always one shoe, so we could reunite the shoes and the pants with their owners. That would be quite cool.
It's never a pair of shoes though, is it?
Never a pair of shoes, there's always one shoe, and yeah, it's always big pants.
Maybe they're too big that they fall off.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe they're being used as a flag. I don't know.
Yeah. And the event this morning, what would you say to other people thinking about getting involved in surveys like this? How have you felt that this morning's gone inspiration-wise?
Yeah, it's been really good because this year, the other main difference with this year is what we've been finding. So we've been finding the usual suspects, which are bits of plastic, lots of those, which is always our commonest item and has been for many years. Lots of caps and bottles. But this year what's been different is we've been finding PPE, so discarded disposable masks, bits of gloves like this, and we really need to be able to quantify that. So we've had lots of anecdotal stories of people saying they're finding an increased amount of this, but we need to know numbers so that we can actually prove it. So this morning's been great because we've actually got data, we've got some numbers on this, and we can use that to campaign and to hopefully get behaviour changing in regards to, you don't have to dispose of your face mask just because it's disposable the minute you finished wearing it. So yeah, it's been really great, and thank you everybody that helped.
It was absolutely brilliant to hear from Jules there and to hear what she thought of our volunteer survey event, and it was a real pleasure to have you join us, so thank you so much, Jules. So let's go through the data and what did we actually find. So our 5 beach cleans were across 5 of the 7 bays. We did Porthcothan, Trianon, Constantine, Harlyn and Trevone. So let's start with Porthcothan. So on our Porthcothan survey, we found a total of 1,153 pieces. Now, nearly 90% of these pieces were either plastic or polystyrene, 11% of which are sourced from the public, and nearly 14% were from the fishing industry. So moving over now to Trianon, and we're going to make our way through the beaches as you would if you were driving towards Padstow. So on our Trianon survey, we found 1,501 pieces, which makes this the worst or best beach clean, depending how you look at it. So we found the most items on Trianon. Now, over 90% of these, again, were either plastic or polystyrene, but over 30% of this waste was sourced from the public. Moving swiftly on to Constantine Bay. Now, this is one of my favourite beaches to clean, and keep an eye out for next week's Tune In Tuesday, as we've got a real adventure on Constantine coming up for you. But for this survey, we found 1,353 pieces. Now, what's really staggering to me from this was that over 10% of this was sanitary waste. So it's sourced from sewage, which is utterly gross, and hence why you should always be wearing gloves on your beach cleans. So 50% of this waste was non-sourced, and the rest was between the public, fishing industry, and, as I said, sewage. Okay, now moving over to Harlyn. Now, nearly 90% of the 1,354 pieces found was either plastic or polystyrene. So there's a real trend we're seeing here with that the majority of what we find is either plastic or polystyrene. But what was really shocking with this data from this survey was that out of these 1,354 pieces, we found 121 cigarette butts. 121 from just one beach. That is just utterly shocking. And nearly 50% of what we found down on Harlyn was sourced from the fishing industry, so significantly more than any of the other beaches that we surveyed. Okay, so last but by no means least, we have Trevone, which is of course my favourite beach. It's the beach that I spent lockdown clearing. It's the beach that I grew up on, so I was very pleased to see that Trevone was in fact the cleanest of all the beaches, and by far we only found 476 pieces on that survey. And I say only, 476 is still a significant amount, but it is drastically less than the rest of the beaches that we surveyed. And most of this, again, is similar to what we're seeing was plastic or polystyrene, and from a variety of sources. So let's summarise this. Let's look at the totals across all of our 5 surveys. In total, we removed throughout the whole of the Great British Beach Clean campaign from the Marine Conservation Society 5,837 items. Now this is a really high quantity of plastic items that we're removing from the beaches, and this is just 5 beach cleans. We do hundreds of events every year, so it really gives you the scale of the issue, but also the scale of the difference that we're making with our community beach cleans and other groups are making across the world. As we said, Trianon had the most items in the survey and Trevone had the least. But there's 2 items that we found that I would really like to focus on because this really did shock me. And that's the cigarette butts and the cotton bud sticks. So in total across our 5 beach cleans, we found 239 cigarette butts, which is an enormous quantity. And not many people realise that cigarette butts are in fact made out of synthetic materials. They are plastic too. And researchers found that it just takes 1 cigarette butt to toxify 1 litre of seawater. So that's 239 litres of seawater that could be affected by all sorts of toxins that are put into the cigarette butts. And the other one, of course, is the cotton bud sticks. Now, across the 5 beach cleans, we found 198 plastic stemmed cotton bud sticks. And the reason that I wanted to focus on this was that last week we had the phenomenal news about the ban of the single-use plastics coming into force. Now, the single-use plastics that this is focusing on is the cotton bud sticks, plastic straws and plastic stirrers. Now, all 3 of these items we're still finding on our beach cleans in high numbers. I mean, 198 cotton bud sticks is significant. So hopefully following on from this ban, we're going to see some important changes taking place on our beach cleans, and maybe next year we will see significantly less of those items. So all that's left to say is a huge thank you, of course, to all of you watching, but also to all of the volunteers that came to the beach clean, and also to the volunteers that came and helped us sort it all out and do the survey. As I said, we've got a really special episode coming up next week, so keep your eye out for that. If you enjoyed this week's episode that's going through what we actually find on our beach cleans, then why not give it a like, comment or share, and I'll see you next week for next week's episode.
Hi guys, the Blowfish here, the world's only heavy metal marine biologist and ocean ambassador for the Marine Conservation Society. Now, I love the seas, from corals to clownfish to saltwater crocodiles, marine iguanas to whales to tiny little whelks. It doesn't matter to me. If it's in the oceans, it's in my best friend's book. Oh yes, you heard me. I love the seas, but particularly I love these guys. I love sharks, and I'm sure you guys out there love sharks as well. Well, I would like to give you a big whale shark sized thank you for all the help and effort you've given the Marine Conservation Society. We're here working hard, saving our oceans, cleaning our beaches, and you've helped us keep doing that. So thank you. You all rock. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. It is me yet again, Tom the Blowfish Hird, the world's only heavy metal marine biologist. And thank you for, well, thank you for coming back. That sounds a terrible thing to say, doesn't it? Thank you for coming back. No, good on you for coming back. I hope you are thoroughly refreshed. There's still loads more quality content on the way. It's a marathon of marine munchy goodness. All right. Thank you. Thank you for coming back. If you're just joining us, cool beans. Don't forget, get on the old socials, use the hashtag Ocean Optimism. And for those of you that are a little bit sharp and on the ball, you will notice that my words are apparently appearing like magic. It's like Harry Potter, but just slightly fishier. And they should be appearing on the screen for you right now. So we've got the captions on there. There is a bit of a delay. Don't worry about it. And also, if it comes up with some really funny words, well, frankly, that's just genius. Now, let's get straight back into it, okay? We have got a cheeky video coming up now for the Sea Champions, followed by a live presentation from Liam Fowley of the Scottish Youth Parliament about how we can get young people interested in marine conservation. Now, Liam was elected in June 2019 to represent Kilmarnock and Irvine Valley in the Scottish Youth Parliament. The SYP is a democratically elected voice of Scotland's. Sorry, I do apologise. It's the democratic elected voice of Scotland's young people, formed from over 160 elected members representing every age group from 14 up to 25 in Scotland. You know, really decent thing, giving young people a voice. Superb, all right? Superb. Now, Liam is currently the vice chair of the SYP, but was previously trustee and convener of the Education Committee, where he led the SYP's national campaign, Pack It Up, Pack It In, all right? From Yorkshire, pack it up, pack it in. I like it. Good on you, Liam, you star. This campaign itself focused on reducing pollution in Scotland and engaging young people from all across Scotland. So fantastic stuff. Let's have a cheeky look at the video and then we'll send it straight over to Liam.
Hi, I'm Christina. I enjoy volunteering for the Marine Conservation Society because I'd like to inspire people to think about living without single-use plastics.
Hi guys, my name's Ron Walsh and I'm one of the Sea Champions down here in Ayr.
Hi, I'm Sea Champ Kaylee and I'm Sea Champ Hannah and we've been helping out the BBC film for MCS.
Hi, I'm John Hepburn. I'm one of Jules's Marine Conservation Society Sea Champions in the southwest.
I volunteer for the Marine Conservation Society because the first year of my uni I volunteered with them and I absolutely loved it and it was very rewarding. So I haven't stopped since I've become a Sea Champion now and enjoy every minute.
It's been interesting to see how different each beach is and what you find there. Where I live we find lots of wet wipes, so sanitary products, which is pretty awful.
The oceans are the ones that are generating most of the oxygen we breathe in and regulates our climate. So, I'm just giving back a little bit, and it's really great to help.
I think it's actually very important that as a community activity to do things like this, because it does make a difference to the beaches, to people's environment and the general well-being of everyone.
I love volunteering with Marine Conservation Society because it's an opportunity for me to meet like-minded people, talk about my love of the ocean and make me feel like I'm taking part in positive change and making a difference, as it can be quite difficult sometimes being aware of all these problems that are going on around us, but not really feeling like you can make a difference. So.
Over the 5 years that I've been with Marine Conservation Society, I have developed my networking skills, I have made friends, I have almost got to the point of making family, I guess you could say.
So on behalf of the volunteer team and of course all staff as well, I'd just like to say a huge thank you to all Sea Champions for all the amazing work that you do. It is just so incredible and we feel so privileged and so proud to work with you. Thank you so much.
Hi everyone, so Blowfish has officially built me up. I hope I don't let you all down. My name is Fowley, and as it was said, I represent the best constituency and area in Scotland, Kilmarnock and Irvine Valley, as member of the Scottish Youth Parliament. And again, it was mentioned before, I currently serve as the Vice Chair of the Scottish Youth Parliament. I'm currently wearing a kind of pinky jumper, I have gingery curly hair, glasses and a brown beard. A huge thank you for inviting us here to be here today to tell you all about Scottish Youth Parliament, our national campaign, environmental protection, pack it up, pack it in. So SYP was established on the 30th of June 1999. That makes us one day older than the Scottish Parliament itself. That's something we're not going to let them forget in a rush. And it was, you got a bit of background from Blowfish, but our elections are held every 2 years. They are democratic as they can be. Young people vote for young people, and they are young people across Scotland that stand as candidates to become MSYPs. The Scottish Youth Parliament is a wide group of young people across Scotland, and of course we are democratically elected. It's made up of 160 or so MSYPs, that's every Scottish constituency, and we have 11 nationally volunteer organisations, things like the Scouts, the Boys Brigade, Girl Guiding, etc. We have 2 MSYPs each per NGO and constituency. We work closely with local authorities to deliver our work. We've got a unique democratic mandate, and we represent the views of young people aged 12 to 25 across Scotland and from a variety of backgrounds and communities. We are youth-led, our board is made up of young people, our conveners group made up of young people, our working groups all made up of young people, so we are really unique. We are fundamentally a rights-based charity, and our mission, vision and values are grounded in the United Nations Conventions on the Rights of the Child, the UNCRC. In particular, our purpose embodies Article 12, that young people have the right to express their views freely and to have their opinions listened to in all matters that affect them. Essentially the mantra of make decisions with young people and not for them. SYP exists to provide a national platform for young people to discuss the issues that are important to them and campaign to affect the change they wish to see. We deliver one national campaign every year, and previous campaign successes have included Votes at 16, Love Equally, our campaign for equal marriage, All Aboard, which was all about public transport, and Right Here, Right Now, which successfully called on the Scottish Government to incorporate the UNCRC into Scots law. Of course, as well as all this, our outgoing campaign on environmental protection, Pack It Up, Pack It In, which I had the absolute honour to lead alongside some amazing young people. We know young people are passionate about our climate crisis because we see them flock in their thousands to Scotland's streets to demand action. And we see them talk complete sense about the absolutely scary situation that we are in. We are realising that it is us that will take the hit for not taking action right now. All we want is to grow up in a clean, green and vibrant country, and we want to keep it that way. We also know young people are passionate about this because after MSYPs consulted with over 10,000 young people across Scotland, it was decided that environmental protection was the focus of SYP's 2019-20 national campaign. Pack It Up, Pack It In, not named after the song, was launched in November 2019 after almost 2 months of consultation with thousands of young people from Shetland to Sanka. So what did we decide to focus on? Well, each and every one of us here today know how big of an umbrella term climate change is. We decided to focus on the reduction of pollution. We know these are words young people are familiar with and an area where we felt we could deliver something tangible. And I've said before, as much as I'd have loved to resolve climate change within a year, we had to be a little bit realistic about it. Our campaign aim was to empower young people to speak out and take action to reduce pollution levels in Scotland. What's the key word there? Empower. If you empower our young people and they really know they can make this country and our world cleaner, greener and better to be in, that is when change will occur. So we split our campaign into 3 phases. The first was our research phase, getting the views of as many young people in Scotland as we physically could, aiming to achieve a diverse range of responses as possible. Those views were captured in our campaign report. We then had our grassroots phase, our local actions phase, the way for MSYPs and young people to get involved with the campaign. We share information with our MSYPs who then get involved with local young people and help them realise the butterfly effect. A small change here can cause a massive reaction elsewhere. Examples of this include our campaign action days, a chance for young people to shine, free from old folk and decision makers. A day where we asked young people to make the smallest of changes for a day, or to do something campaign related, like go plastic free, wrap your Christmas presents with as little waste as possible. And we even had one where we encouraged young people to go climb some mountains and have a sustainable tea party. Our third phase was the advocacy phase, where we took our report to decision makers. We shouted and lobbied about it, all about what young people want to see in our country to reduce pollution. Some, much like myself, would say the fun bit, but others might just disagree. I'm going to just share a few key points from the report. I won't take too long. Over 1/4 of the respondents to the question said that litter has a negative impact. I'll say that again. Over 1/4 of young people who responded to the consultation said that litter has a negative impact on the way they and others view their area. Some young people expressed concerns that litter will put tourists off coming to visit their areas, whilst others say litter puts them off spending time outdoors or using recreational spaces such as parks and sports fields. Some young people feel that young people are often the ones blamed for littering, which can be frustrated when this is not always the case. That's what struck us with a bit of sadness in a way. Remember earlier when I mentioned that a lot of young people care, and then we heard them being blamed for not caring. There's a real issue with that. We cannot be tarring young people with the same brush. So what do the young people of Scotland want to see? Well, we want to see local authorities and the Scottish Government to make funding and support available for young people and other community groups to carry out local projects to reduce the impact of littering and increase community pride in their local area. This comes after we found that over 1/4 of young people say litter affects the way that they view their area. Nearly 3/4 of young people think plastic packaging items are damaging to the environment. And they also support the ban of plastic straws, disposable coffee cups, cereal box liners, takeaway containers, cling film, crisp packets, and so much more. To give you a quote from one young person we spoke to, they said, all of these products can be made out of other materials, and they're the kind of products that people often do not recycle, with many people not even being aware that some of these products are recyclable. That's why we asked the Scottish Cabinet to carry out a full review of how to reduce the use of plastic, with consideration of a full or partial ban for certain products in Scotland. We're also looking forward to sharing our views with the government in our response to their current single-use plastics consultation. Now, we'll give you a very brief snapshot of Pack It Up, Pack It In. I invite you all to check out the report on SYP's website. Read it, digest it, and act on the views of young people in Scotland anyway. As well as reading our report and thinking about young people's views, there are lots of other things you can do to help young people harness their environmental and ocean optimism. And here's a few ideas to keep in the back of your mind. Support young people to get involved in existing local campaigns and activities, and or encourage them to come up with their own campaigns or actions involving those campaigns. If you're running events, meetings, or activities, think about when you're holding them, particularly at the moment. After spending months away from education during the first half of this year, young people are often excluded from opportunities because they fall at the same time as school, college, uni, or work. We also strongly encourage you to ask young people for their views and make sure that there is a space for them to meaningfully participate. This might mean changing some of the ways you work, but we know this can only be a positive. Finally, I'm just going to take this opportunity to say a huge thank you to the MCS team for having SYP involved in your AGM planning process and indeed having me along here today. A massive shout out and thank you to Catherine Gemmell, Scotland's Conservation Officer with MCS, for her constant enthusiasm and support of Pack It Up, Pack It In, and for taking so much time this year to really engage with MSYPs and with SYP as a whole. Her support has been invaluable. Thank you from us all, Catherine. So I'm going to conclude now, and I want to leave you all with a key message to take away from this past message. When in doubt, ask a young person. Do things with young people, not for them. It may not always be easy, but it will always be worth it. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Liam. And that was awesome. For starters, what a cracking beard. There's some hard, decent beard work going on tonight, ladies and gentlemen. It's good stuff. And I hope you all enjoyed the semi-mild panic as we all waited for the switch over, the resting sort of Zoom face, the kind of rabbit in the headlights, waiting to be told that we're on. Speaking of rabbit in headlights, what about rabbits in cameras? Oh yes, what about rabbit fish in cameras? Look at that amazing seg that I've just done then, because that was terrible. That was awful, but we're sticking with it, all right? Because next we have got two fantastic biologists, fantastic camera women, fantastic lasses, basically, who, if you can make it through this next session without laughing your head off and just being so buzzed by two of the smiliest people you can meet, I'll give you a tenner myself. Actually, I won't, because I'm from Yorkshire. I'll give you 10p myself. That's different. Okay, so what we've got here is the wonderful world of wildlife filmmaking. And our two fabulous hosts for this are Inka Cresswell and Lizzie Daly. So Inka, if you don't know Inka, she is a wildlife filmmaker and underwater camera operator. And after studying for her BSc in marine biology, she decided to combine her passion for underwater photography and just general interest in marine biology and conservation to create wildlife documentaries, but bring that focus under the waves and then get people reconnecting to this world that seems so alien to us and so far away. Lizzie, of course, we all know Lizzie. She's dangerous, but what can you do when you're Lizzie Daly? You just got to live your life Lizzie style. She is, of course, the world-famous Welsh biologist and wildlife expert. She's a filmmaker and a conservationist with a healthy curiosity. I'm not sure what an unhealthy one would be, but a healthy curiosity for everything the natural world has to offer. And she has made wildlife films all over the world. So after establishing on CBBC as a wildlife expert, Lizzie has just gone strength to strength to strength and has gone on to present for BBC Earth Unplugged, where she found some very creative ways to connect with the audience, including, and I wouldn't ask her to do this on a night out, but including an attempt to dive like a gannet. Who knows? I'm going to leave it with them. Enjoy.
Here we go. You can hear me now. Yeah, not the best moment of my career, but nevertheless, Inka knows all about trying to channel the inner primitive primal instinct, right, to better understand the species.
Constantly pretending to be a fish and hoping for the best, but don't convince them quite yet.
Yeah. Tom, thank you so much for that introduction. And I think, if you don't mind, Inka, I can speak for both of us when I say this is like such a lovely opportunity to be able to connect and have this conversation with MCS and this fantastic AGM event. So MCS, thank you so much for having us. Inka, because we have so much to talk about and so much to go through. Tom gave a little bit of an introduction, but tell us more about where you are right now and a bit about your background.
Yes, so apologies for trying to give a conference talk from the pitch black in the middle of nowhere. Sometimes one of the joys of our industry is that at a moment's notice, occasionally you do have to fly to the other side of the world. And I found myself one of those situations this week. So I am currently away doing some training for some upcoming shoots, which is why I am sitting in the dark trying to swat away mosquitoes as we speak. But yeah, it's such an amazing opportunity to be here and just really excited to be able to share some of my work with all of you guys. And I'm very much so early on in my career, so I've got a few projects that I'd love to share with you, and then slowly kind of progressing more and more in this industry, which has been truly incredible. And MCS UK has been a fantastic support as I've continued to put more of my work out into the public, and it's just been a really fantastic way to engage an entirely new audience in marine biology, which is kind of what we all want to do, is spread that ocean optimism, inspire more people to really care about our oceans.
Yeah, and for you, I mean, you're not only just a wildlife filmmaker, right? You're also a scientist first and foremost as well, right? So you've got a big background of many skills.
Yeah, so I think that's probably a great place for us to kick off, is that obviously we do what many people consider to be the dream career, and it is a hard one to get into. I think something that I've learned a lot the more that I've progressed is that there is no one route into this industry. And for me, it started off with that just raw curiosity and passion for our oceans, and that kind of desperate need to learn more and understand more and just want to really dive into those ecosystems. And it was that kind of thirst to understand what I was seeing better that led me to university to study marine biology. And it was throughout my degree, I actually moved to California to study. And throughout my degree out there, I just became more and more frustrated that no one else was as in love with this ecosystem as I seemed to be. And I was just like, how can I share this with people? How can I get them as excited as I am, and just share that curiosity and passion to the point that they go, yeah, you're right, this is amazing, we should be protecting this. And I realized that film was the best way of doing that. So my research moved more and more into, okay, I want to be a marine biologist, but I want to document my work, and I want to share it with more people, and I want to show other young people that this is a really cool career, and these are really amazing ecosystems that we should love and care about. So I actually ended up doing a master's in wildlife filmmaking, and that then led me into my career now doing a lot more films and working on much bigger broadcast stuff. But what about you, Lizzie? What's your entry route into this crazy world?
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. You know, I'm sure you get asked as well all the time, you know, how do you get into the presenting world or that world? And it is never that linear. I think what I always say to people is the number one rule is exactly what you've done, is stick to what you love. And you know, you love the marine world. I have to say, hands up, I sometimes get tagged as a marine biologist, and then I have severe imposter syndrome because I'm not a marine biologist like you. I just have an absolute obsession with the ocean, and have fell into it through just spending time in the ocean and finding stories to navigate through film. But primarily, I'm also a scientist. I'm currently studying a PhD, not on the ocean at all, on land animals, so specifically African elephants, collaring African elephants with the Swansea University lab team, which is an incredible opportunity. But it's that passion and that interest in the natural world which has always been first and foremost. And exactly like you said, Inka, it's about using the tools at your fingertips to try and document and share those stories about what you love so much. So it kind of comes hand in hand, right? But obviously it's not that simple. It's quite a difficult world or industry to get into, and I know so many people obviously do want to get in the wildlife film world. Well, I want to come on a bit later about what it's like to have a foot in each world and then navigate both. But firstly, you're obviously on a shoot right now, which is fantastic. But what are some of your highlight projects over the years throughout your career so far?
It's one of those ones that it's really hard. And I think something that I've learned about the ocean is that my favorite moments are usually the ones that come out of nowhere, the really unpredictable ones that you haven't planned for, where you're in the ocean and you're looking around and something just takes your breath away, pure surprise. And it's just, I don't know, sometimes it almost feels like the reward for all the hard work you've been putting in. And so I think my absolute best moment underwater was years ago. I was working for the Watermen Project, which is a fantastic organization that does loads of shark tagging work. We were working for the shark tagging team, and we were traveling around the world tagging scalloped hammerheads. And I was diving down looking for these sharks, and I got engulfed by a pod of dolphins. And then I had an ocean hanging above my head, and then a school of hammerheads passed. And I just remember, and it was all in the space of about 20 minutes, maybe.
Wow.
I completely mind blown.
Yeah.
And even I look back at it now and I'm still going, I must be remembering that wrong. Like that must have been a dream. It can't have been real. But it's fantastic. I think outside of just those moments with wildlife that you just feel so privileged to be in, it's the people. And a part of what I really love about wildlife documentary filmmaking is that I love marine biology, but I love that passion that so many of those scientists have, and being able to really tell their stories is a fantastic part of what we do. And I find that enthusiasm that I feel for these ecosystems is reflected in so many of the people I work with. And it makes that even a shoot that can be surrounding something that's quite heartbreaking and harrowing, like ocean acidification, you have that mutual love for something. And it's always amazing when all those energies pull together and you go, oh, we're all here because we share that love for this ecosystem and we want to create a better world. And those are definitely some of my highlights. What about you?
Oh my gosh, just casually some absolute, Blue Planet style scene there, Inka. What am I going to follow up with that? No, I mean, I wanted to talk about a few things just because obviously this year's been a little bit strange for everyone, and I particularly really found it hard being in the UK and not being able to go out to the islands and see the colonies of gannets and all the rest of it. I've struggled with that. I'm a massive advocate for celebrating local wildlife as well. So one of my favourite projects was the Scoma Live project we did over the summer. It was for those who haven't seen it, it was like a 14-part weekly live series where we went live with puffins and seabirds and talked about the conservation of the island. And do you know, it was so brilliant to stay connected to all the wildlife that's just 2 hours drive away. No one's on the island. The wildlife is just carrying on as normal. And what was great is that it intertwined like science and exactly what you're talking about, the people, the characters who are the wardens on the island carrying out their research. It showed and celebrated, it showed support and celebrated those who are currently going through tough times financially with the Wildlife Trust and those that own the islands. And it's just an excuse to talk about puffins all day. So there was that. That was I shouldn't say that really, because there's a lot of hate for puffins. Okay, black-legged kittiwakes, they're my top favourite. So those. But aside from that, I think your moment of awe, I would say, would be that giant. I came across a giant barrel jellyfish a few years ago, and it was complete freak encounter, and it just came out of nowhere. Enormous jellyfish, bing bang boom, put it online. Just goes to show the power of film. It went viral a few days later, and what was great is that we saw this giant barrel jellyfish. It led to so many questions about why we saw a giant jellyfish, and I, someone who I feel like understands species in the ocean, was thinking, God, there's so many big gaps in my knowledge and understanding of this species. So I went to a scientist at Swansea University. We set up a citizen science project called the Great British Jelly Watch Weekend for people to go out and document washed up jellyfish on their beaches. And twofold kind of reasons for that are twofold. One, to better understand if we're seeing more jellyfish wash up in our oceans, that climate change story and that known issue of increase in jellyfish and potentially other species due to warming waters, but actually just how incredible jellyfish are. No one talks about jellyfish ever.
Such a shame, and I couldn't agree more. I think treasuring those local spots are so important, and like you, throughout lockdown, it was just such a reminder that actually some of my best experience aren't on the other side of the world. It's diving with blue sharks off Cornwall and chasing seals around Lundy, and it's just, we're so lucky to live in the UK and to be on an island just surrounded by water. It's just fantastic for the things that are out there.
So so many questions for you, Inka. I'm gonna move on and kind of come full circle talking about kind of you and your career. But why for you as an individual, as a scientist, first and foremost, do you think it's so important to have people like yourselves, young women and scientists at the forefront of that in this space, telling these important stories?
I think for me as a filmmaker, something that I've realized is that authentic voice is something that I consider to be really important. And it's that I think a story can be so much more powerful when it's coming from the right person and when people can relate to that individual. And I think that's something that I've tried my hardest to kind of work into the storytelling that I do on my own personal films. And it's just, I feel like it reaches people in a different way. And they actually, you don't have to be someone who has spent hundreds of hours underwater to understand the importance of the ocean. Quite often it's a much more raw personal connection that we all share, and it is that need to just have our mental well-being, the feeling we get when we're around salt air, all of those moments. And that carries through so much when it comes to that moving from science into film. Because if you have the right scientists who are genuinely passionate about it and it connects to their normal everyday lives, and you can relate to the way that they look at those ecosystems, you'll find yourself naturally caring about them more and more. So I think that it is really important that we do put scientists on camera more, that we do have more unique voices telling these stories. And I think as well, as we have more unique voices telling these stories of our oceans, we're also going to start inspiring more and more young people from all different backgrounds who maybe didn't think being a scientist or being a filmmaker was accessible to them. So we've got a long way to go to making science more inclusive, but I think that as it does, we're going to have much better solutions for how we're going to save our oceans. So I love kind of entwining them as much as possible.
No, it's brilliant, and I'm sure you've seen this, but across both worlds, both academia and film, there's misrepresentation of women, and not necessarily. I find, particularly now with biological sciences and younger women, there are actually a lot of females in that space. Sometimes I've walked into meetings and groups with organizations, and there's mostly women, but it's that lack of representation all the way through, and people like yourselves having you as a filmmaker, but also having that foot in the science world as well, I think is absolutely valuable, not just for having that young inspiring female filmmaker, but actually discussing some of the important stories in a certain way, because obviously we both work on that online space as well, right? The world of digital is absolutely a monster, and I find it quite hard to navigate through what is true, what's not, how to digest the necessary information and convey those important messages that are really the critical messages, and also not to mess up somebody's scientific research. People have dedicated their lives to these
years and years of research.
Yes,
and down to a meme.
It comes down to a wrong percentage, and but rightfully so. It's that binding together of two worlds, which is so crucial. So yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more with you in all of that. If you had to, a few more questions before we go over to anyone who's watching who has questions for us. But if you had one conservation story you wanted to tell next, what would it be?
It's such a hard one. I think the one I'd love to do is really kind of showing people the importance of their local coastlines, and kind of showing people how there is so much just on their doorstep, and encouraging people to go out and explore that for themselves. And I think that the more pride we show in our local ecosystems, then the more hope there is for the future, because globally we are such a coastal species. We're across all of these different coastlines, and if all of us felt empowered to engage in local conservation, then I think we would be in a much better position. So yeah, I think that's the story I'd love to tell, is just the beauty of understanding your local environment and respecting it, learning to live with nature. And you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've heard it a few times tonight already as part of the AGM, blue recovery as much as green recovery, thinking long term about the realities exactly of the state of our oceans around where we live. MPAs, let's talk about that. Why aren't they being properly managed? Why aren't we asking the questions, why aren't MPAs properly managed, before going on to establishing high levels of protection, and then actually looking at all the areas that still aren't protected? I feel like we've got a long way to go in actually looking at the ways that we are trying to positively move forward to conserving our waters, but actually we as a role have a role in documentary as well to tell those right stories, and there's so many still that are relevant around our coast. I'd also like to see a better celebration of our carbon storage in a more succinct and powerful, I guess, way of documentary storytelling. As you know, seagrass is hard to make a documentary about, but people are loving it.
Shot in the right way, I think you can definitely do it.
Okay, no questions yet, but where are you, Inka? People want to know.
I can't say, but it's dark.
Yeah, no, it sounds like whatever it is you can't say, but it's a really exciting project, which is really
yeah, you'll find out soon enough, but unfortunately I'm just in the dark somewhere.
Yeah, okay, in which case I have a question for you personally. What's your next project coming up, if any? Have you got any of your own projects on the horizon?
I do. So I just finished my first big film, which was My 25 The Ocean Between Us, which is a personal authored short film. Played at Wildscreen this year in the Christmas section. Thank you. So that went down really well. But a part of that, I wanted to tell the story of so many incredible individuals I met during that production. And like any film, it's impossible to get everyone's stories in. So I've been cutting a series of different interviews with local fishermen, local rangers, people that I met kind of throughout the making of the film, which I'm looking forward to putting out over social media so people can learn a little bit more about actually some of the science that was behind some of what was captured in that film. So excited to dive into the science a little bit more on that. And what about you? Any exciting projects, any exciting travels coming up?
So obviously COVID is limiting things, but I've just come back from a work trip to Norway. We were looking at the herring, particularly interested in the moving herring in the northern fjords of Norway. Seems to be some changes over the years, which is affecting the feeding of humpback whales and orca, and we don't really know how. So yeah, I was kind of like a fish, again, another fish story. I did a salmon story, a herring story. I can't, it's just so important, right? It's the fundamental of this whole ecosystem and food chain. So super interested in the herring and the movements in the northern Norway around there. So I think we're time up, Inka. I knew this would happen. No.
Oh, well, thank you so much. And thank you, Marine Conservation Society. It's been fantastic as always. And I know Lizzie and I are both easy to contact on social media. So send us any messages with the hashtag and we'll try and get back to you.
Lovely to chat to you, Inka, as always. We'll catch up soon.
Absolutely.
Thanks all.
Ladies and gentlemen, I assume that I'm back in the room. I told you, didn't I? Two just super energetic, incredible, chatty ladies. I was just smiling throughout all of that. When you listen to people with that kind of passion, making that kind of impact, it really just gives you so much hope, and it kind of gets rid of all the bad news stories. You know, we can make a difference. We are making a difference. There are two fantastic people there showing you, getting involved. And yeah, it's really, really heartwarming. Well, from two great ocean heroes to now a lot more ocean heroes, because every year we do take the opportunity to say thank you to the amazing community that are the MCS supporters from all over the country, and all the work and efforts and volunteering and everything they do for the charity. We just wouldn't exist without that graft, that effort, that heart. So it's a big, big thank you there. Now, it's trying to pick everyone out, isn't it? And try and say it to everyone. Well, we'll start certainly with the fundraisers who commit themselves to raising, the vital funds that keep us going here and keep us doing what we're doing. Now, of course, this time last year, none of us had any idea that this was coming, that we'd be in this kind of scenario. So the opportunities to get out and do fundraising in those classic ways that we all know and love, they just weren't there. In April, we should have been seeing the 40th London Marathon. That didn't happen, okay? But instead, and this is fantastic, we had MCS supporters up and down the country taking part in the 2.6 challenge, okay? Of a variety of different ways, between walking, running, cycling, 2.6 miles, whatever it was, you were doing 2.6 miles, 6 miles, but 6 miles is pretty hardcore for anyone. But we also had some changes on that, some variations, as long as it was 2.6 or 2 and 6. So we had picking up 26 pieces of litter from one fundraiser, and we had another that was writing a sea-based short story every day for 26 days. So these are the incredible efforts and the incredible acts that you guys at home have done to support the charity. And that is, in these times, thank you. That is just incredible. Thank you to everyone. Whatever contribution you've made, we have felt it, and we are so, so grateful for it. But we now, of course, have our, awards for those people that have really just kind of, blown our minds for what they've done. I'd say everyone's made a contribution, but some of you, you've taken it to the next level. Fair play to you. Your beards will be in the post, because, you can't be a hero without a beard. So first things first, we're going to the fundraiser of the year. Now, this year's fundraiser of the year didn't let COVID or a global pandemic slow him down. No, sir, that's not for him, because he completed an epic challenge that he'd been working towards for over a year. So in August, despite all the obstacles with COVID-19, Dan Shaler embarked on a solo swim across the English Channel in support of MCS. From our home offices, we followed his progress on Twitter and posts from his support team, which was primarily his mum. Good on you, mum. Well done. And we were thrilled to hear that he completed his challenge in an amazing, I'll get this right, 15 hours and 15 minutes. Do be a kipper. That is awesome. Fair play, Sunshine. I couldn't swim for 15 hours in a swimming pool, let alone across the channel. All them ferries passing by, I get crushed. No good. So we are incredibly grateful to Dan for choosing to support the MCS in this act. And he raised a phenomenal £13,000. And there is still, like the US election, there's still being totals added to that. So Dan, thank you so much, and congratulations on being the winner of the 2020 Fundraiser of the Year award.
A big thank you to everyone at MCS for this lovely award. I'm so proud to have played my small part in helping you with all the really important work you do every year. Swimming the channel was such an enormous dream of mine, and I wouldn't have been able to come close without all of the help of my family and the crew on the boat on the day. And more importantly, we wouldn't have raised nearly as much money without the tireless work of my mum, emailing friends, neighbours, everyone. So thank you to her, and thank you again for this really special award.
Welcome back. Following the chat, it's very unnerving, this live streaming, but I like it. We're doing well. Okay, thank you, Dan. You're a star, mate. You're a star. So this year we've actually introduced a new awards category, the Young Fundraiser of the Year award. And this is highlighting those incredible efforts from children and young people who are supporting MCS. Now, the Tabor Charitable Trust has kindly sponsored this award and donated £250, very nice, prize money to the winner. So the trust, founded by Robert and B. Tabor, has provided vital support to our education program over the past 3 years. Like, it's MCS, sorry, excuse me, I've been talking far too long. I usually skip away to someone more talented and good looking than I. Instead, we're still here. Let me start again. So yes, Robert and B. Tabor, they've been supporting educational programs like for the past 3 years. And they champion the beliefs, just like MCS, that education and children, they are just paramount to moving forwards for the health of our oceans, for the health of our planet, okay? So the support shown by young people to the MCS really is mind-blowing. It is incredible what these kids are going out and doing. We're talking, hiking, biking, baking, the works, all right? I mean, we even had children sacrificing their birthday presents to help save our seas. Wow, if only some of the adult population were that altruistic, that would just be something else. So I'm delighted to announce that the Tabor Charitable Trust Young Fundraiser of the Year 2020 is this year awarded to, there's a little mini drum roll there, look at me drum rolling, that'll be added in post, it'll be fine. The Year 6 class of 2019/2020 at Earls Primary School in Wandsworth. The class organised and ran a film night for parents, staff and pupils about the human impacts on rivers and oceans, raising over 800 smackaroos for MCS. Good times. Well done. Congratulations on your award and prize money. Earlsfield, let's hear from your Year 6 teacher, Mr. Allan. Take it away.
Hi, I'm Andy from Earlsfield Primary School, and this is our award. Thank you so much. I wish the children were here with me now to say thank you, but they can't because they're all in secondary school now. So on behalf of themselves, on behalf of the teachers, all of us here at the Earlsfield community, we just want to say thank you. So the film festival that we ran last year, it had such a huge impact. We talked specifically about the plastics that find their ways into our rivers and our oceans. And the awareness that it raised through the film festival is something we want to keep going. So Tabor Charity Trust, thank you so much for the award and for the funding for the £250. That goes directly into our future film festivals to have or to use better equipment so that we can continue to send more money to Marine Conservation Society. So we're going to make this an annual thing, and we just want to say thank you. Thank you for your support. All the best. Take care. Bye-bye.
We're back. I'm back. Let's keep going. We've got more achievements, more awards. Let's keep hearing from them, because this one is the Outstanding Achievement Award. So each year, MCS recognises an individual for their outstanding contributions to MCS through voluntary support of our work, direct involvement, maybe it's pioneering some of our conservation programs, all that kind of stuff. If MCS is involved and they're involved, it's been a match made in heaven. Now, the 2020 winner of the Outstanding Achievement Award is another little mini. Oh, the tension. Oh, I could just be lagging now, but I'm not. The award goes to Joe Earlham. Joe is a former journalist, an author, and current sea champion who has pioneered innovative work in schools, taking the MCS and the dangers of things like plastic pollution and all our positive conservation messages across the Southwest and beyond. After seeing just a heartbreaking, devastating photo of a turtle entangled in litter in 2015, she wrote a children's story about it, and it began her connection with us here at the MCS about a year later. So as an education-trained sea champion, she has presented over 100 sessions to children, using storytelling as a means to engage and get our message across to even the tiddliest of the tiddlers. Okay, incredible effort getting to those young people. They then, in turn, they help her, with beach cleans and events, and donations from sales of every book have supported our local work ever since. So early this year, we adopted her creative sessions format for a collaboration between Sea Champions and 6 primary schools in Plymouth. And despite good old COVID cutting the old face-to-face sessions short, say that 3 times fast, she's moved all the materials online for the children to view and ran a webinar about how cool the seas were in the summer. She is a very, very busy lady, and we're very lucky to have her attending this evening. Joe, thank you. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you very much for honouring me with the Outstanding Achievement Award. It's been a great privilege to become a sea champion with the Marine Conservation Society over the last 4 years and take my book, Two More the Turtle, into primary schools, using storytelling to help spread the MCS message about plastic pollution in our seas and oceans. Living here at beautiful Sidmouth by the sea, I know how important raising this awareness is. Thank you, and thank you for all the great work you're doing.
I'm getting a countdown now. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm back, right? Lastly, but very much not least, we have a new award for this year, the Young Ocean Optimist of the Year, okay? This award recognises the achievements of young people who have worked tirelessly to protect, recover and celebrate our ocean. Following a public campaign, we received many excellent nominations, which made the task of shortlisting for a candidate extremely challenging indeed. Okay, so our top 10 nominees, they should be being shown now. Make the magic roll. Okay, I'm going to assume that that's rolling, but that you can still hear me. Let's plow on. So a judging panel of MCS staff, ocean ambassadors and members of the Scottish Youth Parliament then had the difficult task of choosing an overall winner. So I am therefore thrilled to announce that the 2020 Young Ocean Optimist of the Year is awarded to Georgie Bull. Get a photo up of Georgie. Let's see that. Yes. Now, before we hear more about Georgie, we also want to give a special mention to 3 other nominees who were highly commended by our judging panel. They are Caitlin Turner, Emily Stevenson, and Rhea Faye Waddle. So well done to all those 3. Well done. Well done to everyone that got involved, you know. We wish we could call you all winners, but today there's only one winner for us, and that's Georgie. Okay, Georgie's passion for the oceans and her belief in inspiring a connection between the public and our seas is very, very clear. You know, this is committed lady, I'll tell you that for free. Alongside studying marine biology and coastal ecology at Plymouth University full-time, So full-time student. She's a dedicated sea champion, Seasearch diver, and chairperson of her university's scuba society, as well as the youngest ever winner of the British and Irish Underwater Photography Championship. That's just amazing. I was too busy just making noise at university. I was paying attention, but mainly just making noise. That's incredible. But all this effort, all this graft has allowed her to reach just a wide variety of new audiences and different people and inspire an interest in marine life right here in the UK on our doorstep. So Georgie uses her images to engage with local communities where they need to protect vital but unknown habitats, things like seagrass meadows, that kind of thing, and then illustrate the fantastic marine life that are found in these places to prove that our seas are not grey and dull, but they're green and vibrant and fizzing, okay? Good stuff, all right? Her work aims to strengthen positive, emotional, and lasting relationships between people on our ocean, because if we can get people to care about the seas, then they're already going to protect them. We don't even need to ask them to protect them. They will care about them. And Georgie's at the forefront of that. She is a true beacon, a bastion, if you will, of ocean optimism. So it's thank you, Georgie, and big congratulations. But before we go, I think we need to hear from your two newest fans.
Hi there. I just wanted to say a huge thank you and a massive congratulations to all our nominees this year. You've all done such an amazing job at protecting our precious oceans and at spreading some much needed ocean optimism that it's been awe-inspiring and brilliant. And I hope you keep it up and keep going. Thank you so much.
Hi Georgie, congratulations on this amazing achievement. It was such an honour to be able to judge this year, and your application really blew us all away. Not only did you show your incredible passion and love for our oceans and local ecosystems, but your ability to take that passion and create something that you could share with the general public and inspire others was truly breathtaking. Thank you so much for sharing your work with us. We can't wait to see what you do in the future. And again, a huge congratulations for this award.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think that Georgie, Inka, and Lizzie could turn into a fabulous triad of ocean wonderment. Oh yes, that's a thing. If not, I've just made it. Now, speaking of ocean wonderment, you've had enough of my huge face. We need to step up to flavour, and our headline speaker for this evening, a fantastic lady that I'm sure all of you are already well aware of. This is why you tuned in. Come on. Okay, we are about to hear from the fabulous Gillian Burke. If you don't know who she is, where have you been living? In a cockerel's boot? Come on, get on board, all right? Gillian joined BBC's much-loved Springwatch in 2018, alongside the usual people, good old Packham, Strackham, and even Mr. Williams as well. Now, having earned her biology degree in biology, where else do you earn it? After earning her biology degree at Bristol University, Gillian pursued a career in natural history filmmaking, working her way up through the ranks, researcher, producer, director, and working on some big stuff with Animal Planet and Discovery Channel. Okay, this is a lady that's been there, done that, and got 4 or 5 different T-shirts. But as a scientist, she is committed to tracking down and sharing evidence of hope, because that is so important. Having hope to do, to be, to try, that is so important. And it's why she permanently is smiling. We've had so many lovely smiley people tonight, but she's Queen Smile, permanent optimist on most days. It depends whether or not she's had a gin the night before. We'll find out. Enough chatter from me. I'm sending it over to the fabulous Gillian. Off you go.
Well, wow, that is an introduction. I don't know about anyone else, but I have been smiling all the way through this evening. It's an amazing event. So thank you, Tom, the Blowfish Hird. I feel like it should be a boxing kind of title, in the ring and big crowd cheering. Fantastic hosting all evening. I've just been loving it, smiling all the way through. Congratulations to the winners as well. That's just some really inspiring efforts there, volunteer stories. It's humbling, actually, to be honest. I'm sure you've all been enjoying this as much as I have, right from the start, hearing from experts, Chris Tuckett, Calum Duncan, Jill Bell, updating us on the work of MCS, right up into hearing from Liam Fowley, Lizzie, Daly, Inka, Cresswell, inspiring young people. So it's really humbling, and with a heartfelt thank you to MCS for inviting me to speak to you, to give this final keynote, I suppose, address. It's sort of a strange one. It feels like I should be very formal about this, but I am in my home, as is everyone else. I hope you guys are comfortable. I'm just going to give you a little bit of the housekeeping word of warning that in past things, I have 2 kids, and there was one event where I didn't realize, but my daughter came in sort of Mission Impossible style round the back. So if you see the door open and you sort of see some movement going around the back because the kitchen's that way, that's what's going on. So we'll just pretend like it's not happening and then plow on through and keep going. So I want to begin maybe by sort of changing the tone a little bit, because I know I got that lovely introduction from being an optimist, but I wanted to set a scene, and so just stay with me for a while. I want to start setting a scene. It's 2020. We're getting close to this year. I don't think there's any need. I don't need to labor the point. We all know what we're talking about. However, in the midst of all this COVID reporting, there's been a few details that have been missed, and they're big details. So I follow a meteorologist on social media. He's a climate communicator, a guy called Scott Duncan. And I think in the chat, they'll be sharing his social media handle. I don't actually know him. I've maybe messaged him a couple of times on Instagram, but I've really enjoyed, maybe enjoy is not the right word, but I've really found it valuable following his feed on Instagram. He's also on Twitter, because I feel like it's a great way to keep sort of your finger on the pulse of what's happening, sort of day to day in the kind of climate and weather story of our planet. And 2020 has been quite the year. So there've been loads of global heat records that have fallen this year. On virtually every continent. Japan has hit a new heat record, 41 degrees. Iran, 53 degrees. Paraguay, 45.5 degrees. Belgium, 35.4 degrees. It sounds sort of like Eurovision or something, but sadly it's not. Mexico hit a maximum of 50.1 degrees. The list goes on and on. And that is quite literal, actually. Overall, there was a new global heat record set this year in the Death Valley of 54.4 degrees. That's the hottest that's ever been recorded on our planet. And 2020 is set to be the hottest summer in the Northern Hemisphere ever recorded. So this is a record-breaking year for all sorts of reasons. Until just a few days ago, an area which is known as the birthplace of the Arctic sea ice had remained open seawater right the way through October. It's an area called the Laptev Sea. And that's not been recorded ever before. It has actually frozen literally in the last few days. I got an update on that. But there's all these firsts. So 2020 is a record-breaking year for climate, for weather stats. And in the face of all of this, I guess the question is, how could I possibly talk about ocean optimism? Well, the thing is, I think I still can. I really do believe it. The reason why I believe it is because, as we've been seeing all evening from the scientists who are involved in active research and conservation work on the ground, right to the youth activists, there is a lot of positive energy. Yes, there's bad news out there, but there's incredible tenacity and the will to keep pushing through for positive environmental change, for a blue and a green recovery. And that that gives me hope. That gives me optimism. And this isn't a kind of, let's pat ourselves on the back and say, oh, well done, we're doing this work. It's actually really, really important to amplify this work, amplify these messages. Because there's research that shows that in terms of our behavior, our species, we kind of go with the crowd. So if it starts to become normalized that actually there are a lot of people out there doing good work, and there's a lot of positive news in a sea of, yes, quite scary news. But if we start to amplify those messages and really, really normalize the fact that there are a lot of people out there who care about our planet, about our environment, about ourselves, it's actually quite normal to care. If we can do that, then it starts to build momentum, it builds a movement. So that is why events like tonight, celebrating all the positive work that's going on, actually having a hashtag called Ocean Optimism is really important. It helps to galvanize, it helps to collate all this work, pulls it together, amplifies it, and gets that message out there. So tonight, what I wanted to do is share a little bit of the reality check, in the face of all the optimistic talk. But then also share some of my experiences, my journey to how I got to where I be the person that gets to do this tonight. And tell you, maybe share you a bit of how I stay on, for most of the time, the right side of that line, from not feeling like I need to throw my hands up in despair and think, oh, all hope is lost, but stay on the other side of that line, one where I can feel optimistic and hopeful, even in the face of evidence that would suggest otherwise. So to kick off, I want to play a little clip. It's an awesome encounter that was filmed for Springwatch a few years back. It's a little treat, but it's also hopefully a chance to remind ourselves, if we need reminding that is, what this evening is all about. So enjoy.
To say that was amazing is an understatement.
I just love watching that. I mean, I hope that's as much a treat for me to watch as I hope it is for you guys. That was filmed on the Isles of Scilly. There was a little area where seals are known to be quite curious and would quite often come up to swimmers and divers in the water. So it was a good lead. We went there. I got to free dive. What I wasn't expecting, of course, I hoped that there would be this close encounter, and I'm sure a lot of you tonight will be aware of this, but it is really worth saying this one caveat, that having an encounter with seals in the water is a completely different proposition to seeing them on land. On land, they feel, well, they're very vulnerable. They don't move as easily, as gracefully, as quickly. There's important work to do when they're out on land. They need to haul out and rest. Sometimes it's molting, pupping, all that stuff. So on land, you would never want to do that. But in the water, it's a whole different ballgame, because it's their world, and they get to, I guess, they decide what they're comfortable with. They approach you, not the other way around. And they're in the water. It's an environment they reign supreme. But I was still taken that this particular seal had such a kind of insistence of trying to elicit some kind of interaction from me. And I'll never forget that moment, sort of as it sort of grabbed my arm with its fin. It was really, really gentle. And I've been asked before that, was I afraid? And I'll be honest, the thought did cross my mind that, is this okay? But the next thought almost quickly was like, well, it's too late, Gillian Burke. So I went with it, and it was an extraordinary experience to have an individual from a species that has historically been persecuted by man, that in places is still persecuted by man, yet still curious and insistent on trying to connect with a human. And I found that extraordinary, and so many things went through my mind as I could see its teeth and I could feel its breath. It was a beautiful moment. And the reason why I wanted to share that was, to me, I don't want to over romanticize the encounter, but since then, I've often thought about moments like that. And what I really take home from that is, this is going to sound a little bit, maybe a step too far, but sometimes, I need to kind of really try and attach a meaning to something. And for me, that moment was that nature doesn't give up on us, and so we don't get to give up on nature. And for me, that is one of the sort of sentiments, I suppose, that I use to kind of pull me through as I'm bombarded more and more, as we all are, with very challenging information and a very challenging reality of what we're dealing with right now. And I might add, what our species has created in our impact on the planet. So those, that was just this one little moment. But we were talking, this whole evening is about ocean optimism. So to me, it's sort of trying to work out, well, what are the strategies? How do we keep going in this work, in this desire to make positive change in our environment? So that's a little bit of, some of the experiences I have, but maybe, this is a good moment to think about, well, how do I get to where I am? Because like Inka and Lizzie said earlier, it's a question I get asked a lot. Sort of, what was the journey? How did I become a Springwatch presenter? So I'm going to just share my screen here, because I'll just see if this works. Here we go. So it's not the most elegant thing. For some reason, I can't seem to get rid of all the text around it, but just focus on that image there. So this was the image of a very obscure species of hermit crab, Clibonarius erythropus. This was the species that had gone extinct in Britain following the Torrey Canyon oil spill in 1969. And in March of 2016, a shore search survey, a citizen science program run here in Cornwall, where I live, on my local beach, actually. One of the volunteers, Nick Tregenza, an excellent naturalist, spotted one of these and recognized it as something that hadn't been recorded by him on that beach. A little bit of research, looking things up, and they identified it as this species that had disappeared from British shores since that terrible event in 1969. At the time, it was the biggest man-made disaster in the world. So this was my first story that I covered for Springwatch. I could not believe they went for it, because you can see there, this is a tiny little thing. And my experience of trying to sell and pitch ideas to TV people is that if it doesn't have a backbone and if it's small, you're probably not going to get it through. So I was absolutely gobsmacked that Springwatch were like, yes, this is great, let's do it. And not just that, there was this like popular audience vote, and they that was when it was named St. Piran's Crab. So again, this was like an amazing good news story to be able to share with the nation. And it was evidence, again, this evidence of hope that, oh, okay, without any intervention, without any management or conservation plans, this species made it back to our shores. So it set me on a train of starting to, I guess, almost believe my own hype, because up until that point, I liked the idea that nature could recover, but I hadn't seen enough evidence. And since this very first story, a big part of what I like to do on The Watchers is share these stories of hope, stories of recovery, evidence that nature has this irrepressible life force, this power to bounce back. So that was how it all started on The Watchers. But the question was, how did I actually get going? So this is a little picture. So I'm so sorry, this is not as big as I'd like it to be, but this is a picture of what I call little me. This is when I was a kid, and I used to go to Seychelles. Now this sounds extremely glamorous. My grandmother came from Seychelles, and so we would go to visit her there. And this isn't the Seychelles of the sort of luxury holidays. This is the real Seychelles. And I got to go on this boat. This was my first boat trip, and I was beaming. I mean, I do remember this as just feeling so good being out at sea. I loved the motion. I loved the smell, the sounds, the spray, everything about it. And we would return a lot to Seychelles while my grandma was still alive there. And that was where I got used to being in the water. Initially just playing. And then I got my first mask, and I started to try and dive down deeper and deeper. I probably wasn't getting very far, but that's, you know, that was what got me going. And it was these early experiences that really got me comfortable with being in the ocean. Since then, I've had my PADI. I did my PADI open water. That was like one of the first things I did as soon as I had my first job, which was in a restaurant. I waited in a restaurant called, it's an awful name, it's called the Copacabana, and I had to sort of dress as like a hula girl. It was like really degrading when I look back on it, but at the time I was just like, this is paying for me to learn how to scuba dive, I'll do it. So I was quite happy about that. I got to learn to dive in Croatia. So again, another lovely warm water place to learn to dive. This is soon after the Bosnia conflict, so it was a cheap place to go and learn to dive. It was basic, but it was beautiful. And, you know, just the more I did, the more I fell in love with the whole experience. And eventually I did my biology degree, as Blowfish mentioned, and slowly, you know, after the degree, was in the doldrums for a while trying to figure out what to do in my life. But then eventually sort of got my first work experience placement at the BBC NHU, the Natural History Unit, and did that for a while, then researcher, and I worked my way up to becoming eventually becoming a director, producer. And it was the point when I got my very first fully fledged directing role, which is when I discovered I was pregnant with my son. And that was essentially a game changer, massive game changer. There are many women that maintain their careers in TV and in other jobs and have children. I chose to be a stay-at-home mom, and that's what I did for 7 years. My daughter was born 2 years after my son. And I would say that it was the most important time for me in terms of reconnecting with nature on my doorstep. And by this point, I lived in Cornwall. So I moved down from Bristol with my family to Cornwall. And so nature on my doorstep was the coast paths, the beaches, and also inland as well. And I have to say, it's not literally on my doorstep. I don't live on the beach. But I had that opportunity to slow down and to start to notice the incredible wildlife and marine life, especially in Britain. And it's not something I'd ever really appreciated. and I'll just share the screen again. I decided to embrace cold water diving, which yeah, you know, took a little convincing at first. I took the plunge. I went for it. So much so that I sort of progressed to doing my commercial diving, and I actually smiled at some point through the whole thing, and have, you know, been able to use that in my work now as well on the watches. So for me, it's been such an amazing journey to have rediscovered, or actually, if I'm honest, discover for the first time, the coastline, the marine life here, and to really appreciate how rich it is, from megafauna to the little things, to the microscopic things. It's a rich ecosystem and a rich environment, and one that, while I started to discover, also discovered the problems with it as well. The plastic pollution particularly was something that I really started to notice, and started taking great offense to. And that was really sort of what spurred me. By this point, both kids were in school, so spurred me on to think, well, what can I do about this? And like a great guy called Matt Slater, that St. Piran's crab story was the one that he came to me. We talked about it. I took it to the watches, and I guess it'd be a bit grand to say the rest is history, but that was my entry onto the watches. So that's a really quick kind of canter through that journey of how I got here. Now, just for the last few minutes, I don't know if there are any questions. I'm going to just see if anything comes up in the chat, but otherwise I'll just conclude with a few thoughts about how to stay optimistic in the face of really challenging information and really big challenges, planet-sized challenges. So like I said earlier, it's finding evidence of hope. At times it's like, being optimistic is a survival strategy. It feels better than being pessimistic. So, put very simply, that's one reason to be an optimist. But practically, there is one thing that I've learned for myself firsthand. I know it might sound difficult to get your head around, but sometimes, even though I'm an engaged, I'm a biologist, engaged environmentalist, into my conservation, all that good stuff, there are many times that I feel like I would rather avoid the difficult things. However, what I have learned over the last few years is the more I engage with what is going on, the more I educate myself and really, really make the effort to understand these big challenges. Rather than feeling scared and overwhelmed, I've actually found it easier and easier to know exactly what I stand for, exactly what I want to advocate for, the environment, communities that are affected as well. And that would be, I guess it's the question that I get asked a lot, other than how did you become a presenter, which is, what can we do? What can we do? I get this a lot. And that maybe is the one thing that I would want to share this evening. Now, I know so many of you will already be highly engaged, but in terms of these really, really pressing, urgent challenges that we're faced with at the moment, if you're engaged, try and urge your friends, your family, a few more people to engage. And I mentioned Scott Duncan's feed. There are plenty of great communicators out there. The more we know, the easier it is to act. The harder it is to stay in a place where you don't act and don't take a stand for our beautiful planet and our beautiful blue planet. So I think I'm going to leave it there, because I think I'd like to hand that back to Blowfish to wrap up the whole evening. But thank you so much, everyone. And yeah, it's just been an absolute pleasure to be able to share a little bit of my story with you.
Ladies and gentlemen, what can you say to that? What a fantastic end to what has been a fantastic evening. Gillian, you're just a star. You're just a star. I mean, winner, chicken dinner right there. Well, what can I say? I mean, thank you for being with us, everyone who's from the start. It's been a big night, hasn't it? But it's been fantastic. I don't know what to say. All my blather has been blathered. I'm out blathered, which for me is very impressive. But I think it's only fair then we just say thank you to everyone who's taken part tonight. Thank you to Gillian, our fabulous guest headline speaker. That was just great. So good. Thank you to our main sponsors, Rakuten, for their generous support, and to our friends at Glenmorangie, who offered some suitably correct gifts to our outgoing trustees. Thank you to all the Ocean ambassadors, you know, the Lizzie Dalys, the Doug Allans, the Inkas. Thank you to them for the ongoing support. Thank you to the MCS team. Okay, everyone at the MCS team are working, you know, all day, every day to keep promoting all the good stuff that we love and all the good stuff we do, with a particular special mention to the outgoing chairs, Hugh Raven and Alex Wilson. Thank you as well. I think thank you certainly from my end to Kate and Charlie at First Event for just keeping us all going. You know, it hasn't exploded yet, which is good. It'll happen now, don't worry. And I suppose the final thank you has to go out to you guys watching now, whether you're a member, whether you've just got involved now, or whatever. You've joined us tonight and you've dedicated your time to listen to a lot of people preach to the choir, and quite often that's used as a term to suggest that you're going over old ground. Oh, you're preaching to the choir, da, da, da. But people forget that actually choirs can sing some beautiful songs. So when we all get together, whether you're making wildlife films, whether you're swimming the channel, whether you're just doing a litter pick every day you walk past the beach, that makes you an important voice in our oceanic choir. Okay, so thank you all. Thank you everyone that's been involved. Keep doing what you do. All right, I'm going to go and get a cup of tea. Good evening, good night, good day, good morrow. Thank you. Good night. Bob, Blowfish done.